In a quiet of a night city, a cheerful voice echoed through the air. Inside a small, cozy apartment, a young gamer sat at a desk illuminated by the glow of his computer screen. It was already 3 in the morning. His fingers raced across the keyboard while his mouse darted around the table. He muttered that he hadn't anticipated facing such a hostile opponent. An intense battle was playing out on the screen. Characters clad in vibrant armor clashed fiercely with one another. The young gamer's name was Yi Xian. He observed the fight intently, realizing just how close he was to victory. If he could absorb his foe, he'd become a top-tier player and win $1 million prize. His fingers danced over the keyboard, skillfully guiding his character's every move. With ease, he dismantled his opponent's defenses and delivered a decisive blow. As the victory confirmed, he erupted in joy, shouting about the cash prize of $1 million. A vivid button labeled Devour popped up on the screen. Without hesitation, Yi Xian snatched the mouse and began clicking it rapidly, yelling, "Get it!" After clicking the Devour button on the screen, a sudden burst of bright light engulfed Yi Xian, leaving him momentarily blinded. Disoriented, he struggled to comprehend what was happening, muttering in shock about what could possibly be going on. At the same time, a massive beam of radiant light descended from the sky, piercing through the high-rise building where Yi Xian was located. The world around him vanished, replaced by a landscape filled with wooden houses. This place was known as Prefecture E. Bit by bit, Yi Xian's body began to reappear in the sky, and a fleeting thought crossed his mind. Damn, am I dead or still alive? Suddenly, an invisible force yanked him downward with great strength. Unable to resist, he let out a terrified scream. Yi Xian landed on the cold, hard ground with a thud. To his astonishment, he remarked that it didn't hurt at all. Just then, a person walked straight through him without giving him a second glance. Yi Xian froze in utter bewilderment, muttering, "What the hell? Why did he just walk through me?" He spun around, staring at the man who had just passed by in utter confusion. When he caught sight of the familiar armor, he thought to himself that it resembled an assassin's suit. A confident voice suddenly rang out from Yi Xian's right. "You guys have some nerve, daring to come to Yi Prefecture," it declared. Yi Xian felt a wave of unease wash over him, and a troubling thought crept into his mind. On second thought, he's probably talking about me. Sensing that something dangerous was about to unfold, he grew restless, muttering under his breath, "This is very, very bad." The man focused intently, forming a spell, and told his opponents, "You're unlucky to have crossed paths with me." At that moment, Yi Xian realized with shock that the man looked exactly like him. One of the masked figures spoke up, remarking that their actions might provoke anger. But regardless, they added, "We came here specifically for him." At that moment, Yi Xian waved his hand in front of the masked man's face, coming to the realization that they likely couldn't see him. The masked man remarked, "I didn't expect to be ensnared so easily." Yi Xian, taken aback, wondered if this person's name was also Yi Xian. Yi Huang responded with biting sarcasm, "I kept wondering who it was, but it turns out to be the defeated General Chen Song." He then taunted, "Do you really think you can defeat me?" Chen Song retorted, "Someone named you was careless last time and didn't test his full strength." Concentrating power in his hand, Chen Feng added mockingly, "This cheeky boy." Yi Xian realized the battle was about to commence. "Enough talk, kid," Chen Feng declared. "Today, I'll teach you a lesson." Suddenly, blue lightning erupted around him, engulfing the entire area in its glow. The sheer force of the energy was terrifying, causing the earth itself to split apart. With power gathered in his hand, Chen Feng instantly appeared before Yi Huang and declared, "I'll show you who the more talented one is here." Shouting for his brother to step back, he unleashed a devastating technique. Lightning Art, 4th grade, Exploding Thunderstrike. The sheer force of the attack caused everything around him to crumble. Delivering another precise strike, he declared, "Taste my family's 4th grade art, a Tuanbei punch." Yi Xian, observing the battle unfold, whispered excitedly, This advanced martial art is incredible. How cool. If only I had a physical body, I could grow stronger in this world too. Chun Song clenched his fists tightly, bitterness seeping into his voice as he muttered, "This bastard. He's fighting evenly with his brother." A thought churned in his mind. Asterisk, he can't be allowed to grow any stronger. He must die. He has no place in Lianyan City, and here, the Chung family has no allies to rely on. Asterisk. With those words, Chun Song pulled a dagger from his sleeve and muttered toward Yi Xian. "Who gave you the right to possess such talent? I won't rest easy until you're dead." The fight raged on, each punch delivered with precision and lethal intent. Yi Huang shouted, "Boy, why aren't you taking this fight seriously?" At that moment, Chun Song managed to close the distance between them. With a dagger in hand, he waited for the perfect opportunity to strike. When the onlooker noticed this, he shouted, "Watch out!" Yi Xian didn't have time to react or block the attack, and Chun Song's blade sliced cleanly through his flesh. Chun Song examined the wound with satisfaction, thinking to himself, "Yi Xian will die by my hands." Gritting his teeth against the pain, Yi Xian muttered under his breath, "Chun Song, you impudent bastard." The bystander grew worried, wondering, is he dead? Chun Song glanced at Yi Xian with disdain and sneered, "So much for Lianyan's so-called first genius. A low-grade dagger won't need to strike twice." Chun Song shoved Yi Xian toward his brother and coldly instructed, "Deal with him. If you want to kill him, then do it." The wound was severe, and Yi Xian, no longer able to stand, collapsed to the ground. Yi Huang declared that they could no longer remain there. They had to leave. Chun Song, pleased with his triumph, responded coldly, "He's dead." After the two departed, the man approached Yi Xian. Staring at the lifeless face, a flicker of disappointment crossed his eyes. He thought he'd be just like him when he died, he mused. He couldn't help but wonder if he was the only one who was so unique. Had someone deliberately placed him in this situation? Gazing at the motionless body, he felt a pang of regret. Provoking those who had come for his life would have been in Yi Xian's nature. If he had been alive, those two would already be dead by now. But fate had been cruel enough to let him die with his eyes open, and now he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Thinking about their similarities, the man decided to close Yi Xian's eyes. "Live your next life wisely, Yi Xian," he said softly as he extended his hand. As he reached out, a brilliant glow enveloped him, and he began to fade away slowly. The boy stirred awake to the sound of a gentle voice calling out, "Young master." Dazed and disoriented, he wondered what the noise was. The guy opened his eyes with difficulty and saw the girl with tears in her eyes joyfully, exclaiming the young lord was finally awake. The name Lure popped up in his subconscious. The guy stroked Lure's head and said he was fine. The girl, trembling, said she was worried and anxious about him. Information popped into his head that Lure Yi Xian's personal servant was standing in front of him. He wondered how he knew all this. The realization hit him like a cold shower. He sat up abruptly, turning to the girl and asking her to bring a mirror. She immediately jumped up and went to look for a mirror. When he saw Yi Xian's reflection in the mirror, he froze as if petrified. His eyes were filled with horror. "Oh my God," he whispered, unable to believe his eyes. There were gloomy thoughts in the guy's mind that first he was dragged into this, and now he was this unlucky guy. But then he remembered Chun Sun's words that the previous owner of this body was the first genius of Lianyan City. Curling his lips in a grim grin, he uttered, "The first genius, you say? Poor guy. Sleep well. He will live this life for him. He will help him get his revenge and make him the strongest in this city. Let's improve. Where to start?" Exactly. The TV show said something about destiny and Dantian. The guy thought, sinking into his thoughts. The girl interrupted him with concern in her voice. "Wait, young master." But suddenly he felt sick. He spit up blood and collapsed on the ground. Lure immediately ran over to him. "It's okay. I'll just get up slowly," he muttered. "Try to get up." He looked at the girl anxiously and asked what was happening to him. The girl said sadly, "The head of the house said that the Dantian had been destroyed and the basic refinement had been lost." The young master thought about it. and asked why he had to do this. After all, he only wanted to become a great master. Would his journey end before it had even begun? Luer was concerned about the Lord's condition and said that his wounds had not yet healed. She asked him to take control of himself, as they could still restore his dantian. Chui said that there was 100-year-old black-blooded ginseng in the treasury. It might be able to restore the young master's strength. The young master, hearing this, cried out 100-year-old black-blooded ginseng. Smart girl, Lu, hurry up, lead the way. Surrounded by servants, they asked, "What has happened to the gentleman? He is so pale and looks unwell." One of the servants replied that he was attacked a few days ago, destroyed his dantian, and lost all of his cultivation. She marveled that he was, in fact, a cripple. The other interrupted her and told her not to say that, for the young gentleman had always been very good to them. Let's hope he gets well. The servants continued to whisper that they even felt sorry for him. He really was a good man, never taking liberties. One remembered how at the beginning of the month, he had helped her younger brother start cultivating. At this time, they arrived at the treasury. Lu said, "Sir, this is where it is." This treasury was a huge building that was protected by 2 attendants and an old man. Yi Xian and Lu came closer, but the attendant blocked their way and said sternly, "No outsiders are allowed inside." At this, Lu exclaimed, "Third attendant, open your eyes. This is Yi Xian, not some passerby." The old man didn't recognize the young gentleman at once, and, realizing his mistake, immediately apologized. He asked what the young gentleman wanted here. Yi Xian didn't like this behavior and gloomily looked at him and replied that he needed 100-year-old black-crown ginseng. However, the old man looked at him doubtfully and asked, "Do you need something from the treasury? Then show me the order written in the hand of the patriarch." Lu, not hiding her displeasure, noticed that previously the young master was allowed to take cultivation resources without the patriarch's orders as well. What changed? The old man replied, scoffing, "It used to be so, but now it is not so. The young gentleman is no longer a young talent, but a cripple. What can this cripple do to make the patriarch share his treasures with him?" he asked. Lu couldn't help but exclaim, "What disrespect!" The young master had always treated him well, and he was mocking his injury. The old man discreetly replied that he really treated his family well. That was the only reason why he still called him young master. Any other man would have been taken away by the guards by now. The cultivation resources left in the treasury are needed by others. They can't waste them on a cripple. "Please understand this," the old man asked. He advised him not to waste any more time and said with a chuckle that he had heard from reliable sources that the clan head would send him to the province. "Prepare your sled in the summer to rule some village." The old man thought that in just one night the man had gone from a young talent and the patriarch's favorite to an infirmity being brushed aside by some bureaucrat. It was too realistic. Yi Xian angrily said, "Forget Lu. Talking will not achieve anything here. Let's go." Lu said they shouldn't take his word for it. Better to ask the patriarch personally? What a stupid thing to say. He still didn't realize where he belonged, said the old man disgruntledly. At this moment, Chui came over to them, and with a worried face, she said to the young master, "The patriarch was looking for him. He is waiting for him in the hall." "About time. Just in time to ask everything," rejoiced Lu. Yi Xian, sensing that something strange might happen, asked if Chui knew what he wanted from him. Chui replied with a sullen expression that it seems someone from the Lin family has arrived, and they want to break the engagement. The engagement means he must now take matters into his own hands, thought Yi Xian. He realized the seriousness of the situation and resolutely declared that he would go there immediately. Lu exclaimed in bewilderment that they had initiated the wedding themselves a month ago, and now they decided to back out? What a mean thing to do. Yi Xian said that at least they wouldn't need to gather a delegation. "Be careful," shouted Chui to them. All the people were already assembled and were patiently waiting for the young master to appear. Yi Xian entered the hall where everyone was waiting for him. Uncle gave him a stern look and said, "Here you are." He got straight to the point and said that he called him over because the Lin family wanted him and Lin Su to get married. Yi Xian interrupted him and said that he knows they want to break the engagement. After all, he is now a cripple, deprived of a dantian, coldly said he. The aide shook his head and said it wasn't like that. After all, he was the one who had insisted on this wedding, and such a small thing wouldn't make him change his mind. The man interrupted him and said that one of the best followers of the Tianyuan sect had taken a liking to her and had decided to take her as a disciple. That was why she had decided to break off the engagement for his sake. Yi Xian grimaced, not believing what he heard, and asked for my sake. I can't believe the Lin family came up with such a story to make fun of a cripple. The man smiled, but without mirth, and said how ungrateful young men sometimes are. Lin Xiao joined the sect and became the pride of their family. Naturally, she would be the target of the courtship of many, and if people of her level found out that she was already engaged, it would not end well for him, said. How arrogant of Yi Xian to object. Do you think the laws of the Xian Empire are just for show? Going against them is a rare courage, Yi Xian suggested. The man laughed loudly and muffled and said, his ignorance is frightening. The boy just doesn't understand what the Tianyuan sect is capable of. And he is just a Dharma protector. But even he is not afraid of the Empire. He released his power, and a terrifying power hung in the air. He said that he could destroy the Xian that Yi Xiaoyin was trying to cover himself with. He added that he does not like to abuse the weak, otherwise he would have handled the issue differently. Yi Xian noticed that everyone was frightened and concluded that this man was telling the truth. The man asked what had he decided. His assistant added, don't worry, nephew. If you agree to break the engagement voluntarily, they will return all the gifts, he assured him. That's right, the dowry was picked up by Yi Xian. He remembered that this body's past master's father had left him a fortune. Yi Xian sighed, covering his eyes for a moment, and assumed that if he could find 3 times as much, he could buy the resources to restore the Dantian. All right, I agree, he said at last, but with one condition, that if as a compensation he gets 3 times more than originally given, he added. Uncle was greatly surprised by this statement and frowned and told Xian that it was unacceptable. Don't worry, Uncle, Yi Xian smiled softly. He has his own opinion on the matter, he added. Yi Xian began to manipulate and said that Uncle Lin had proposed the engagement to him, and now he wants to break it off if he just accepts. How will people look at him? He'll be a laughingstock. Besides, the Tianyuan sect and the Lin family are honest sections. I think they don't want any bad rumors to spread, Yi Xian continued. The aide frowned, shook his head, and said lousily. Knowing his rightness, Yi Xian continued that if people talked about this kind of bullying, cultivators would not like the Lin family's behavior, and both of their families would suffer. Let's just have Uncle Lin return 3 times what he gave to his daughter, and he'll say that the engagement was broken off on his initiative because of the loss of cultivation and Dantian. It's beneficial to everyone, he stated confidently. The assistant wanted to object, but when he heard the man laughing, he stopped talking. The man said he's an interesting guy. What a brazen blackmail. Well, he agrees, the man added. The aide became worried and nervously said, Mr. Yu, 3 million is a large sum. The Lin family won't be able to raise that much in no time. But the man didn't listen to him and did his own thing. A cosmic glow appeared concentrated and in the man's hand. He said they had nothing to worry about. A vial appeared in his hand, and he said that there were 2 pills in this elixir, each worth 1.5 million. He abruptly moved his hand, and the vial of elixir landed in Yi Xian's open palm. The man said, hold it. Yi Xian couldn't believe his eyes, just like that. If he knew the counter, he would have asked for 5 times as much. Lu, you have the prenuptial agreement, he asked, turning to her. Yes, young master, she replied. Lu already wanted to hold out the marriage contract to the young master, but suddenly it burst into flames. Great, now the matter is settled. They're leaving, the man threw, turning to leave the hall. As he turned around, Yi Xian suddenly called out to him, wait, sir, I want to know the name. The man asked why he wanted his name. Are you planning revenge? He asked. Yi Xian thought that such a generous man couldn't be let go so easily. It might be possible to get something else out of him. Then, seriously, he replied that he wouldn't dare. He just wanted to know his name, because maybe the day would come when he would want to become his disciple. The man looked at the boy carefully and said, "What courage." "Okay, remember the name, boy. His name is Eugene, a Dharma protector from the Tianyuan sect." The man said as he left that he was smart and persistent. He was sorry that he had lost his Dantian, otherwise he might have taken him on as an apprentice. The Dharma protector from the Tianyuan sect, Eugene, once again repeated Yi Xian to memorize it. The vial that Yi Xian held in his hand suddenly shone with a bright and dazzling light. He moved to another location, and a large sign appeared in front of him that read Eater System. The Eater System inside, Yi Xian reacted, and the next tablet said that a concentrated spiritual pill had been detected. "Would you like to absorb it?" Yi Xian whispered, feeling inexplicably happy. The heavens had indeed left a loophole for him. At this moment, in the back of his mind, the Eater System sounded and said that a concentrated spiritual pill had been detected. "Would you like to consume it?" "Yi Xian," said the uncle. His voice sounded harsh and demanding. Yi Xian logged out of the system. His uncle asked why he was hovering in the clouds. He didn't answer him. "And what does he want?" Yi Xian asked, looking at his uncle with undisguised bewilderment. "Our family has spent millions to find a cure to restore your strength, but it has done nothing," Uncle said thoughtfully. Uncle went on to say that he had heard that martial arts was out of his reach. Why not give these pills to them? With their help, other children would be able to succeed in cultivation. "What do you think?" he asked, forced to refuse. He already has plans for them, Yi Xian replied, not doubting his decision. "Therefore, it will be best to forget about them, Uncle. He's going to use the pills to return to martial arts." One of the heads continued to insist, not hiding his displeasure. "If it was possible, Mr. Yu would have taken him on as a disciple long ago. He is too naive. Even if there is a medicine to restore the Dantian, it would cost an incredible amount of money," said the second head. "When the news of the pill spreads, someone will attack him. It's better to think ahead. What kindness and wisdom." "Only, where was that wisdom when Eugene gave their clan the last word?" Yi Xian replied, not hiding his sarcasm. "And once he was able to chase him away, they needed his pills." Everyone was offended and surprised by such an accusation. Yi Xian was right, but none of them were going to admit it. What nerve! They're the heads of his clan. How dare he say that they need these pills? They will only bring him trouble, but the other children will benefit. They want their family to become stronger, the head shouted. "Head, look at him." Another head intervened, amazed by Yi Xian's behavior. "Xian, in principle they are right. It will be better if you give these pills to them," supported their uncle. Yi Xian, disappointed in his uncle's words, said that he believed in his promise, and he knew that they were planning to send him somewhere far away to help the family with their business. He appreciates that kindness, but he decided long ago that ordinary life was not for him. Yi Xian decided for himself that tomorrow he would leave the Yi family and start the history of his clan. Yi Xian's voice sounded firm and confident, and he said that he, Yi Xian, hereby renounced all ties with the Yi family. "What, are you crazy?" One of the heads shrieked, not believing his ears. Because of 2 pills, he decided to leave the family. Even more dumbfounded, another one interjected. "Absurd, you ungrateful child." The head, "He must immediately punish him," demanded the other head, unable to bear Yi Xian's disobedience. He couldn't remember anyone from their family behaving so unworthily. Has he already decided everything for himself? Uncle Yi Xian asked, resigning himself to his choice. Yi Xian, without hesitating for a second, replied confidently yes, and assured him that he would not stray from this path. "Then have it your way. Respect his choice and be careful," Uncle Lin suddenly said, and a note of respect rang out in his voice. Chapter, "You can't do that. It will set a bad example. Please think about it." Try to persuade Uncle other chapters. Unable to withstand their attempts to coax him, his uncle said loudly and sternly for everyone to be quiet. "Don't let anyone touch Yi Xian again, and don't blame him if you dare to disobey the order," Uncle said with a threatening tone in his voice. "Go on, Yi Xian. Lu, like her loyalty, belongs to you," Uncle said. It turned out that he was quite a reasonable person, Yi Xian thought. "Thank you," Uncle already said out loud, feeling an inexplicable lightness on his soul. "Thank you, head," Lu added, bowing. "Let's go," Lu said Yi Xian, feeling that he was starting a new journey in his life. Yes, young master, replied Lu, walking beside him. The next day, after gathering all their belongings, they were already ready to move out of the Yi clan. Young master, where are they going to go? Lu asked, not knowing where they were going. To the inn Drunken Immortal. Let's stay there for now, Yi Xian replied. If they went there, they'd only have enough money for half a month. Maybe we should choose Feng Li's inn, Lu suggested. Yi Xian replied that half a month would be enough. When he returns the cultivation, money would not be a problem. Has he figured out how to restore cultivation? Lu asked, not believing her ears. Now there are pills, and it won't be difficult, Yi Xian replied. She was so happy to hear that, Lu exclaimed, and hope sparkled in her eyes. Soon, they had already reached the Drunken Immortal Inn and managed to check into their rooms. Young master rests for now, and she will go and get some food, said Lu, walking towards the exit of the room. Aldikt, ye wan replied. After waiting for Lu to leave, he quickly pulled a vial of pills out of his sinus. Opening the pill bottle, a golden glow formed around it. He said just to make it work, and popped one pill in his mouth, devouring. In the same instant, his entire body was covered in golden lines that connected at a single point near his heart. These currents he feels are spiritual energy, he thought. How interesting. A plaque appeared in front of him, saying 70% progress. Apparently, his Dantian was still recovering, Yi Xian guessed. Progress is up to 95%. It looks like one pill wasn't enough, he reasoned, and threw in another pill. The system beeped and said that the energy harvesting for system recovery was complete. The plaque showed up all 100%, and the system said the system was activated. The system has detected that the user's tribute has been destroyed, starting the process of devouring the tribute. Yi Xian asked the devouring process, shouldn't it restore it? Unexpectedly, Yi Xian felt an intense pain, and looking at his stomach, he saw a concentration of strength. What's the pain? What's going on? He asked. It's like all his organs are twisting. With difficulty, he endured the pain. He fell from a chair to the floor, and clutching his stomach screamed. At the scream and noise, Lu came running into the room and exclaimed, Young master, what happened? How painful, groaned Yi Xian, clutching his stomach. Lu became worried and, not understanding what was going on, said that young master was scaring her. Dantian Devouring is complete. The devouring system is fully activated. The confident voice of the system sounded in his head. It's over. Yi Xian barely exhaled, squinting in surprise and still holding his hand on his stomach. Looking at his abdomen, he could still see the concentration of power on his abdomen, but the pain had stopped. He wondered if his Dantian had changed. A system voice sounded out and said, Absolute Devouring System. It can absorb anything to turn it into spiritual energy and transfer it to its master. Master, it's true. He has recovered cultivation, exclaimed Lu, unable to believe her ears. Her eyes shone with joy. It was very painful, but now his Dantian is normal, Yi Xian replied, feeling a surge of strength in his body. He could feel the power flowing through his veins. Lu brightened up. Tears of happiness glistened in her eyes. The master had restored cultivation. How happy she was. She will ask the mistress to set the table to celebrate. Yi Xian said fine, for he was very hungry. Of course, right away, young master, Lu replied, happily running toward the exit of the room. He waited for Lu to leave and squeezed his hand, which concentrated tremendous power, and said, Eater System. A table opened that said it could absorb anything to turn it into spiritual energy and transfer it to the host, the system's voice said. Absorbing anything and turning it into chi. So it needs to absorb something to turn matter into power, Yi Xian pondered. This is much easier than cultivation. 3 areas of the system appeared in the system are martial arts, lineage, divine weapon. I will start with martial arts, said Yi Xian. There are 5 schools of martial arts, is the storm blade technique, which creates powerful wind blows. The roaring tiger fist concentrates powerful spiritual energy into the fists, turning them into weapons with the striking power of a roaring tiger. The falling wild goose's foot utilizes quickness and agility. allowing for unpredictable strikes. The Vajra finger utilizes quickness and agility, allowing the wielder to strike unpredictable blows. A palm of returning sand, which is used to create sandstorms that strike the enemy with relentless force. Wow, 5 martial arts schools, Yi Xian marveled, imagining the power of each of them. His mastery of martial arts had reached level 5, which meant he would be able to learn all the techniques he assumed. Yi Xian thought for a long time about where to start exploring and chose the Roaring Tiger Fist. A cross appeared on the plate, and the system voice said, "Error. Not enough devour points." "What points?" Yi Xian resented. "System. How do you earn devour points?" he asked. "To earn them, you have to devour valuable items," the sign showed. Valuable items, he wondered. Looking around for an item of value, he noticed an antique patterned vase on the table. Yi Xian said that this porcelain vase looks quite expensive from his glance. He tried to say devour, but it showed an error. The system said devour failed. Wrong pose. He should literally eat her. Yi Xian wondered, imagining this unusual action. "No way," he replied to himself. Then decisively said, "Don't care. We live once, it's a shame, of course. But he's the only one here." "Wow, it's shrinking," whispered Yi Xian as he watched the vase getting smaller and smaller. Yi Xian ate the vase, and the system said that the ingested item has the quality of trash. 0 points were received. Yi Xian resentfully said that he had been promised energy for literally anything. What kind of nonsense is this? To earn devour points, you need to devour valuable items, the system said. Yi Xian hesitated and said valuable, right? Probably talking about heavenly treasures or expensive cultivation items. Yi Xian said that if he wanted to gain points faster, he would have to go to the 18 mountains of Lianyan. Hopefully, everything will be fine. He was worried that the eating posture was too uncomfortable. Would he have to squirm during combat as well? The system said he could buy a devouring arm that would absorb items, costing 3 experience. At this moment, loud voices came from behind the door. Opening the window, Yi Xian asked, "What's going on there, a fight?" "Shelma is definitely getting into a fight. Did she forget the place?" The other maid slapped Lu and said that she was a lowly maid from the Yi family. The master desires her. She should gladly do his will. Yi Xian, seeing this whole situation, was greatly worried about Lu and fell into anger. A sharp and hard voice sounded. "Look at her." The knave began to accuse her. It would rip her face to shreds so that no such thoughts would even dare creep into that stupid head, she shrieked. One moment she is standing, the next a foot flies into her and knocked her down. "Young master," Lu whispered, looking at Yi Xian anxiously and worriedly. Yi Xian told Lu that she had nothing to worry about since he would always be by her side. "It's Yi Xian himself, the young talent of Lianyun City himself," shouted Chen Song, who had suddenly appeared. His angry voice rang out. "So he's not dead yet?" Yi Xian shuddered as he recognized the voice and said that it was one of those murderers. The Yi family is willing to spend a mountain of money to treat him. It's just a pity that he can't be helped anymore. "He will still be a cripple," sarcastically said Chen Song. Yi Xian replied that Chen Song that night stabbed him in the back, and today he is bullying Lu. He deserved to die. Chen Song's loud and ringing laughter sounded out and asked, "Who's going to kill him? Is he a cripple?" After their battle, he had become a cripple. Better let him be happy that he's alive at all. "Battles?" Yi Xian asked, not believing his ears. Is this what he calls the night ambush when he and Chun Feng attack him in the manor? Yi Xian angrily looked at him and said, "Chun Song will pay the price today." Chun Song replied, "Whatever you say." If he was so tired of living, without finishing the sentence, he flashed the blue lightning he had concentrated in his hand. Throwing himself at him, he continued that he would gladly give him peace. Yi Xian didn't even move. He just stood in place waiting, and when Chen Song approached, he stopped his punch with one hand. Chen Song was very surprised. "Thunder Fists, what a big name for such a technique," Yi Xian said. Yi Xian quickly took his hand and used his newly learned dragon counterattack technique. Chen Song was surprised that he knew the dragon counterattack and asked why his cultivation was still working. Chen Song felt a great pain and screamed, grabbing his hand, and said how painful it was. Yi Xian, looking at Chun Song, who had fallen to the ground, said that he wanted to thank him, for without his help, he would not have been reborn. The Yi family brought shame on their head by spreading false news, Chun Song said, angrily looking up and down. Yi Xian, already losing his composure, asked if these words were the last, and warned him to prepare for death. Chun Song, unafraid of the threat, laughed and admitted that he had a good catch on him. But would he have the courage to kill him? After his death, war will break out between the Yi clan and the Chun clan. And the Yi family is the weakest of the four great families. They won't survive it, he said confidently. No matter how close the Yi and Lin families are, will they stand up for him? Chun Song remarked, showing Yi Xian's weaknesses. If war breaks out between the families, they will not sit still. I wonder whose side they will take. Yi Xian pondered, thinking about it like this war would not benefit anyone. With a system and enough time, he would be able to destroy the Chun family on his own, but he would have to spare him. Chun Song waited for the moment when Yi Xian let his guard down, and without wasting any time, he immediately took out a poison blade and swung it at him with the words relaxed. Yi Xian didn't even move from his seat. He was waiting for Chun Song to get close enough for him to snatch the blade from his hands. Chun Song looked at his broken fingers and was horrified. Yi Xian said that he was right, it was impossible to kill him, looked at him with anger, and told him that he would repay him in full for all he had done. After uttering the last word, he immediately attacked Chun Sun, not giving him a second to react. Yi Xian moved with the speed of the wind, his body filled with the power of his recovered cultivation. Before Chun Song could even recover from the pain, he was already at the center of a storm of blows. He tried to fight back, but Yi Xian's attacks were too fast and powerful. He knocked him to the ground and told him he wouldn't fall for the same trick twice. Yi Xian sat down next to Lu and asked if she was okay. Lu tried to hide her pain and said that she was just a little sore. Mr. Yi Xian really was able to recover cultivation. He should report this to the head immediately, the man thought, not believing his ears. There was a tense and oppressive atmosphere in the Chun family's manor. "Doctor, how is he feeling?" asked Chun Xiang, the head of the Chun family, looking anxiously at his son, Chun's son, lying on the bed. The doctor, looking at Chun Xiang awkwardly, replied that his hands were almost fused and he would be able to move them in a month. But he would no longer be able to enter the martial arts. Chun Xiang, not believing his ears, shrieked in meaning, "Closed. It turns out he is now a cripple." Seeing the anger and despair in Chun Xiang's eyes, he explained that not only his arm meridians also did not recover completely. If he could move like an ordinary person, it would already be good fortune. But with the help of a magic herb called blood jade herb, it would be possible to restore his meridians. If he wanted to, of course. But this herb is very valuable and costs a fortune, he added. Clenching his fists with anger, Chun Xian roared, "Yi Xian, you bloody scoundrel." He turned to the doctor and asked. What he wanted to say was that his brother was henceforth destined to live as a commoner. In the 18 Lianyun Mountains, medicinal herbs grow in abundance, Chun Xiang said. "Feng, go there immediately. Look for blood jade grass, but don't go too deep." Chun Xiang gave the order, not hiding his determination. "Xinyu, take some men with you and catch Yi Xian. He will personally show him what pain is," Chun Xiang added, looking at his son with a threatening glint in his eyes. "As you command," replied Xinyu with determination. Xinyu uttered, not hiding his lust for revenge, that he was very eager to teach him a lesson. "Looks like it's time to talk to the Wu family," Chun Xiang whispered, a murderous seriousness appearing on his face. It was time to put an end to the Yi family, he continued, with undisguised ferocity. Meanwhile, Yi Xian wanders somewhere near the 18 Lianyun Mountains, looking for things that can increase his strength. He feels free, like a bird released from its cage. Suddenly, a huge boar jumped out from behind the dense trees. The boar picked up speed, rushing straight at Yi Xian. Yi Xian heard the sound of hooves hitting the ground and dodged sharply, deftly dodging the beast's attack. At this time, Lu is waiting for him at the inn, anxiously looking out the window and searching for his silhouette in the distance. "Young master, please return in good health," she whispers as she sinks into the memories of what happened yesterday. Grabbing Yi Xian's sleeve, she asks to be allowed to go with him as well, realizing that Yi Xian has already decided his path. He stroked her head affectionately and said, "Everything will be fine, you have nothing to worry about." He said that his cultivation was back with him. He should get stronger and as fast as possible, and she shouldn't go with him because she would be in danger. He explained that the Chun family was already definitely looking for him to avenge Chen's son, so it would be best if she didn't lay low just yet. "Don't worry about me, young master. Be careful," Lu replied, already looking at Yi Xian with relief. Back to the present, Yi Xian was attacked by a wild boar, but he was able to dodge and said was close. Thank goodness he managed to dodge. In front of him stood the second-level demonic beast wild boar, its eyes burning with malice. The boar attacked Yi Xian again, and he turned on his cultivation and said, wouldn't he know how timely he had appeared? He was just about to check something, Yi Xian pronounced, looking around the surroundings. The boar kept attacking and attacking, but it couldn't get close to Yi Xian and kept getting hit many times. He saddled the boar, concentrated his strength in his hand, and destroyed it with a single blow. Right at the entrance of the forest, there was already a second-level demonic beast. He should probably be more careful, Yi Xian thought. Although, if he was able to handle a second-level demonic beast so easily, a third-level demonic beast wouldn't cause him any problems either, Yi Xian said, confident in his strength. He wanted to leave, but suddenly the thought popped into his head that the eater system could absorb anything. Probably the corpses of demonic beasts, too, he thought. It wouldn't make his stomach twist, would it? Well, it shouldn't, right? Yi Xian suggested with hope in his voice. Screw it. We only live once, Yi Xian confidently decided. He began to devour the beast, and the beast gradually began to get smaller and smaller. The system popped up and said that he had absorbed a level 2 demonic beast corpse. The spiritual power increased by 20. The system didn't let me down, Yi Xian rejoiced as he felt his strength increase. This means that he can just genocide the local beasts and get stronger in no time, said Yi Xian, already imagining new victories. He began to gather power by hunting demonic beasts. A level 2 demonic beast Black Panther, spiritual power increased by 20. The demonic beast of the third-level Fanged Wolf's spiritual power increased by 30. The third-level demonic beast Spotted Ruff was also defeated by Yi Xian's strongest strike. The sun had set, but Yi Xian continued his hunt. He lit a fire to keep warm and reasoned that at this rate, he would reach the middle of the 5th level of martial arts in 2 days. There are 10 levels, each increasing his punching power by 45 kilograms. Right now, his punching power is about 272 kilograms. So any creature below the 4th level would die instantly from a single blow from him, he pondered. He put out the fire and said it would probably be safer in a tree, he decided, climbing up into a tall tree to sleep. He deftly climbed up the tree and, taking a leaf to cover his eyes, said that was enough for today. Suddenly, he woke up abruptly, his senses surging at the unusual sound. Uninvited guests, he whispered, listening intently to the sounds coming from under the tree. Yi Xian, who was perched on a tree branch, suddenly sensed a movement in the depths of the forest. Something was moving towards him, he whispered, gazing intensely into the darkness. In the moonlight, he discerned the silhouette of a huge snake. A third-level white phosphorus python. He exhaled, recognizing the danger. But it's a little too big, he remarked as he watched the snake closely. But fear quickly gave way to curiosity. If he had come to me, it was a sin to refuse, he said. Yi Xian grinned, activating the Space Eater, his main trump card. What useful thing, he thought, looking at his new blade without hiding his pride. Comparing it to the regular universe bag that used to serve as storage for him, this bag is much cooler and great for stealing. Yi Xian attacked the python with his sword, but the snake didn't take any damage because its scales were too strong. The snake turned around, its scales glistening in the moonlight, and opened its mouth and lunged at Yi Xian with lightning speed. Yi Xian, retreating to a safe distance, said that his scales were strong since he was able to pierce through with a single strike. Suddenly the snake was bleeding, a bright scarlet trickle dripping from its tail. It froze for a second, as if stunned by its wound. The snake, frightened and wounded, escaped, disappearing into the darkness of the cave. Yi Xian was shocked and said that it had escaped. Come to think of it, this white phosphorus python was a little different from the others. It had some kind of black stripe on it. He reflected. A speculation flashed through his mind. Could it be that it was a demonic beast that had eaten a heavenly treasure and mutated? Then he will definitely kill it, Yi Xian said resolutely, going in search of the python. Deep in the forest, he noticed a cave hidden among the trees. Maybe it's his hiding place, he thought, cautiously approaching closer. There's a chance that the treasure that changed him so much is still inside, he suggested. His trek was becoming more fruitful by the minute. Yi Xian rejoiced, already anticipating a valuable catch. He peered into the cave and began to look around for anything of value. Reaching the end of the cave, he saw a small room where his gaze fell on a shiny crystal lying on a small island. This is the heavenly treasure, Yi Xian thought. Scrutinizing the shiny obsidian crystal, he whispered. Yi Xian wondered that since it caused a level 3 beast to advance to level 4, it was definitely strong. Hopefully he will get devourer points for it, thought Yi Xian. Jumping over the rocks, approached the crystal. He reached for the crystal, but at that moment, a snake guardian emerged from the water, rushing out with lightning speed to attack. A golden line, Yi Xian was surprised, recognizing the deadly opponent. It was roughly the same size as before. The snake coiled several times in the ground, and Yi Xian, looking at it with surprise, asked this snake, is completely dumb or what? Suddenly, there was another snake behind his back, which immediately attacked Yi Xian. It turns out there are 2 of you here, Yi Xian said, already realizing the full extent of his catch. Yi Xian took the crystal and brought it to his mouth, realizing the full extent of the danger. Okay, I entrust my life to you, crystal. The system stated that he had absorbed 1 concentrated obsidian nugget. Spiritual power increased by 1,500. Yi Xian bounced to the side, dodging the snake's attack, and felt a surge of strength sweeping over his body with satisfaction. And now that he has level 5 martial arts, he's going to let them go to ribbons, he hissed, preparing for the final blow. He lunged with his sword, putting all his strength and skill into the blow. The sword swept through the snake's scales and plunged into its flesh. However, the second serpent, seeing the shredded body of its kin, let out a furious hiss and attacked with renewed vigor, as if it couldn't believe its eyes. It attacked with a strength that Yi Xian had never seen before. The serpent rushed to attack at a breakneck speed, its body vibrating with rage, and every scale on its back seemed like a sharp dagger. Yi Xian dodged and swung his sword again and tried to chop it, but this time his sword was unable to pierce through the sturdy scales. Yi Xian realized that he couldn't defeat it. He retreated, casting a quick glance at the huge beast that was full of rage and thirst for revenge. Yi Xian knew that if he stayed, he would die, so he ran. Yi Xian cried out in frustration. Are they a fucking buffoon? He doesn't even have enough level 5 to break through this thing. He contemplated his next course of action. What to do now? He whispered, realizing that his sword skills were too weak for such a dangerous snake. But suddenly the thought struck him that he had just gotten the OPs, so he could put them into combat techniques. System, open the list of martial arts techniques, and find something level 5, he demanded of the system. That's what Yi Xian whispered when he saw the wind blade technique on the list. He said that he wanted to spend points on the wind blade technique. 1 experience was spent. The exchange was successful. The system responded, transferring power to him. Yi Xian's entire body shimmered with power, and he grabbed his sword and began to put that power there. He shifted, putting all his strength into the movement, and swung his sword, this time managing to wound the snake. The sword swept through the snake with incredible speed, cutting through its scales and leaving a deep wound in its side. Amazing, he just learned the technique and immediately mastered it perfectly, he said, looking proudly at the wound he inflicted on the snake. The snake attacked him again, but Yi Xian dodged in response, and his sword swept through at an incredible speed, injuring her. A heavy battle ensued between them. Just as he thought a level 5 technique would require too much qi, Yi Xian said, already exhausted. At his current cultivation level, he could only use it a couple or 3 times at most. We need to finish him off, and quickly, Yi Xian decided, realizing that he wouldn't be able to last long against such a powerful opponent. And he knows how to do it, he said confidently, seeing the snake begin to approach him with great speed. He gathered all of his qi, concentrating it into one powerful strike. His body trembled with tension, and an unusual fire flared in his eyes. His sword swept with incredible force like lightning, slicing the snake in half. Blood gushed from the wound, painting the walls of the cave a bright scarlet color. After expending a lot of energy, Yi Xian fell to the ground with a feeling of heaviness in his legs and shortness of breath. He whispered Ho in relief. Although it was originally a simple level 5 monster, it was harder to kill than level 6 monsters. If it wasn't for the level 5 battle technique, it definitely wouldn't have survived, Yi Xian concluded. System, I want to study the devouring hand, he asked, already anticipating new possibilities. Spent 3 experience. The exchange was successful, the system responded. Yi Xian's hand was covered in golden light. He touched the shredded parts of the snake and said devour, activating a new technique. You have absorbed a level 5 mutated demonic beast. You have received an increase of 300 spiritual power, the system reported. Not bad. Those 3 points are worth it. I won't need my mouth anymore. And thank goodness, laughed Yi Xian, rejoicing at the useful skill. He spent too much time with those snakes. It was getting light. Eat the second one and go, he said, heading for the body of the remaining snake. He absorbed a level 4 mutated demonic beast. Gain an increase of 100 spiritual power, the system reported. He had only spent a day in the mountains, and his cultivation had already grown so much, he thought, feeling satisfied with his accomplishments. But the most important thing he could earn was precious eater points, he rejoiced. His assumption turned out to be correct. Only expensive things like heavenly materials and treasures give eater points. He decided it was time for him to head back, or Lu must be worried. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound. He drew his sword and began to listen. At this moment, a leopard swept past him with great speed, like an arrow shot from a bow. Was it just him, or were there crystals hanging around the neck of this wind-chasing level 4 leopard? Yi Xian wondered. I wonder who has that much extra money. To think of hanging $1 million crystal around a beast's neck, he whispered, not believing his eyes. Yi Xian, intrigued by the unusual sight of a leopard with a crystal around its neck, ran after it, trying to catch up with it. He couldn't miss such a rare opportunity to get his hands on the crystal. I wonder where it went, he thought, looking around. The leopard had disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. From afar, he heard a rough male voice that said, "Listen here, girl, give me the blood jade herb." And he was still talking to her nicely. Don't make her angry, or it will be worse. Yi Xian followed the voice that came from behind the trees. He saw a girl hidden by a cloak and a man he already knew. The man stood in front of her like a wolf preparing to attack. Would it be worse? And would he have the skill to stand by his words? The girl replied, not relenting in her bravery. The man flashed his eyes angrily and said, "Oh, she's a whore." He stepped forward, ready to pounce on the girl. Chun Feng recognized Yi Xian as the man. What does this bastard want here? He thought, feeling that the situation was becoming more and more dangerous. Taking out his sword, the man lunged at her and exclaimed that then he would kill her. Her corpse would be more agreeable, he said with wild anger in his voice. The girl deftly dodged Chun Feng's sword and used her cultivation to attack back. Chun Feng realized that she couldn't be defeated so easily and used cultivation as well. But Chun Feng's strength was much greater than the girl's, and she fell to the ground wounded. This is Xue Qingqing, the daughter of Xue Hai, the chief rich man of Wanjin City, and the old girlfriend of the former owner of his body, Yi Xian remembered. Chun Feng raised his sword above the girl's head, his eyes burning with anger and told her to say hello to the spirits, he hissed, ready to deliver a fatal blow. This is not good, he thought as he saw Chun Feng raise his sword above the girl's head. Yi Xian decided not to hesitate and entered the battle to protect the poor girl. Yi Xian did not hesitate, broke a tree branch, and launched it at Chun Feng's sword with all his might. The branch flew through the air with a loud whoosh and fell onto the sword, throwing Chun Feng backwards. "Who is here?" Chun Feng shouted, turning around abruptly and clutching his sword in his hand. His eyes flashed with anger. He was ready to lash out at whoever dared to interrupt him. "What one would expect from a young master from the Chun family," Yi Xian said, smiling wryly. "You don't scorn anything, behaving like that to a poor girl," he continued, full of contempt. Chun Feng was surprised by his appearance and asked if Yi Xian had followed him, as if he had nothing to waste his time on. "Jerk," Yi Xian replied, with caustic irony in his voice. He did not hide his contempt for Chun Feng, who dared to attack a helpless girl. Yi Xian, not paying attention to the man and worried about the girl, asked if she was injured. What did she even need in these mountains? "Where's the father?" "Guards?" "She's fine," she replied, trying to hide the joy in her voice. She was grateful to Yi Xian for coming to her rescue. Yi Xian is at the beginning of the 4th level of martial arts, and he is at the beginning of the 5th level. Even together, they wouldn't be able to handle him. "Run. She will hold him back," she said, trying to protect Yi Xian. Yi Xian asked did she know that he was so strong, but she still decided to fight? She replied that until they exchanged blows, she didn't know it herself. Yi Xian stroked her head soothingly and grinned and said, "The beginning of the 4th level?" He had already traveled far from there. "He has advanced to level 5, she exclaimed happily, her eyes sparkling with surprise. "Yi Xian, he's just something. The last time they saw each other, which was only a year ago, he was at the beginning of the 4th level of martial arts. And now he already has the 5th level. He's a born genius," she exclaimed. "Yi Xian, protect her honor," the girl asked, angrily pointing at Chun Feng with her hand. Her voice was full of anger and hope. She believed that Yi Xian would protect and not leave her in trouble. "All right, you can calmly watch him kill him for her," Yi Xian confidently replied. Chun Feng gloatingly asked, "Is he going to kill him?" In the previous fight, he hadn't tried, but he would let him feel the power of the Chun family Thunderblade on his own skin. "He will pay for his brother's broken arm," he said as he prepared for the fight. "I wish you luck. You'll need it," Yi Xian replied, pulling out his sword. His eyes were burning with anger. He was ready to fight. Spatial ring. Chun Feng was surprised, looking at Yi Xian with undisguised interest. He realized that Yi Xian did not possess simple capabilities, and his surprise turned to anger. "It seems to be doubly profitable to kill him," Chun Feng said, smiling wryly. His eyes lit up with a thirst for revenge. He was willing to do anything to take revenge on Yi Xian for daring to injure his brother. They rushed at each other like two wild beasts ready to tear their opponent to shreds. The battle was on. A deadly battle ensued. Chun Feng attacked with furious fury, but Yi Xian was much stronger. He dodged his opponent's blows and threw punch after punch, leaving Chun Feng in a daze. "Impossible, his cultivation should not surpass him," shouted Chun Feng, with undisguised surprise and anger in his voice. "Thank you for this, brother of mine," Yi Xian replied with a chuckle in his voice. He did not hide his superiority and enjoyed Chun Feng's surprise. "I knew I should have cut off his head then," Chun Feng hissed, with undisguised anger in his voice. He wished he had done it earlier, but now it was too late. "I'm afraid it's too late to regret," Yi Xian replied with amusement in his voice, smiling wryly. "To repay him for his favor, he will kill him in 3 strikes," shouted Yi Xian, pointing his sword at him. "Ah, he is boastful," hissed Chun Feng with disbelief in his voice, and lunging at Yi Xian with such fury that it seemed as if the very air around them trembled. "Well, hold on, Thunderblade technique," exclaimed Chun Feng, rushing forward to attack. His sword shone with a bright light, and a powerful strike erupted from it. Yi Xian did not hesitate. With a sweep of the Stormblade, he responded as he parallelly deflected Chun Feng's strike. Their powers came in contact. The air vibrated and a bright flash appeared, blinding everyone nearby. "Is that all?" Yixin asked, smiling wryly. "Is this really all that the Chun family's Thunderblade technique can do?" Chun Feng exclaimed, unable to believe his eyes. What was wrong with his cultivation? He had taken a hit from the Thunderblade, and he didn't have a scratch on him. "The technique he just used is at the 5th level of martial arts," Yixin replied, grinning. "What do you want? I'll teach you," he asked. "All he has to do is to fall at my feet and ask nicely." "Bastard," Chun Feng hissed, clenching his fists. The rage in his eyes burned brightly, reflecting the hatred he had for Yixin. "Things are bad. Where did this damn son of a bitch learn a level 5 technique?" thought Chun Feng, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. He couldn't believe his eyes that Yixin was able to master such a powerful technique. "Or is politeness too difficult for you? Then I can be your godfather," Yixin wryly pointed out. "If I keep fighting, I will definitely lose," thought Chun Feng, realizing that he was losing the battle. "Looks like I'll have to take this girl hostage." Yixin immediately ran to the girl's aid. "System, I want to exchange the eater points for level 5 storm steps," he asked the system. "Einopspent." The exchange was successful. "The skill lightning attack step has been obtained," the system replied. A lightning attack step technique that moved him with unimaginable speed, making it impossible to keep track of his movements. Yixin, in the blink of an eye, was beside Chun Feng. Before Chun Feng could react, a sharp pain pierced him in half. He felt his body split into two. Yixin, with terrifying ease, sliced Chun Feng in half in one move. Chun Feng's body was split into two, but his sword continued to fly forward, aimed at the girl. Her eyes widened in horror. She couldn't move, seized by the paralysis of fear. Yixin, without hesitating, used his skill again. In the blink of an eye, he was beside the girl and hugged her so that the sword wouldn't hurt them. The girl, who was in an awkward position, shouted and said, "Yixin, get off." "I apologize, it somehow came out by itself," Yixin replied, grinning. "She smells really nice," Yixin thought, as if he had forgotten that he had just killed a person. Far away from the bustling world, somewhere near the 18 Lianyan Mountains, Yixin and the girl stopped. If he didn't show up, she would be in trouble, the girl whispered, holding out a vial of liquid and a flower to Yixin, shimmering with a bright, almost magical light. "Are you sure you want to give this to me? If I'm not mistaken, it's a pulsing blood jade herb. It's worth a lot of money," Yixin asked, looking at the vial with undisguised interest. "Grass and grass, I don't care. What's important is that she's alive. Her father is the richest man in Wanjing. They have tons and tons of grass," the girl said, looking at Yixin with a slight smile. "Well, since that's the case, thank you," Yixin thanked, taking the vial and slipping it into his groove. "By the way, he never heard what she needed in the 18 Lianyan Mountains," Yixin inquired. "She wanted to go to the Liyun sect, but her father strictly forbade it, so she decided to sneak in. And then she got lost." She blushed, as if confessing to some transgression. "Then we should be glad she stumbled upon it," he said, pointing the way to the exit of the forest. "First, let's go back to Lianyan. He and Lu haven't seen each other for a year. He'll buy us a nice dinner." "Wonderful," she was so hungry. "I want fried lotus seeds with fish," the girl said and glowed with joy, barely restraining her appetite. They had already come out of the forest, and a man came up to Yixin in a hurry, trying to catch up with him, and shouted, "Young master." He had finally found him. "Hurry up. Let's go to Yi Manor. Someone beat up little Lu." "What? Who had the nerve to do that?" Yixin hissed, his eyes glittering with anger. "Someone from the Qin family," replied the man angrily. Chinyu took some men and went to look for him. After learning that he was gone, he snapped at Lu. When the news that he had maimed Chen's son reached the Yi family, the head immediately sent an ambassador who found Lu. But it was too late. "Too late? What's wrong with her?" asked Yixin, grabbing the man's shoulders. He felt a sharp pain and worry for Lu pierced through his body. The doctor said that her internal organs were destroyed by the flow of evil spiritual energy. "I'm afraid little Lu won't live to see tomorrow," the man replied, losing all hope. Yixin clenched his fists, unable to believe his ears. Damn, how dare they attack an ordinary person? He ran, and rage boiled within him. He had underestimated the anger of the inhabitants of this world. He whispered, sorrow, in his voice. His thoughts were occupied with only one thing: saving Lu. Already in the inner courtyard of Yi Manor, the maid was taking care of Lu by taking a cloth and putting it on her forehead. You can be free to go, Yi Xian said to the maid. The maid lowered her head and said, yes, sir. Yi Xian sighed and turned to Lu. The girl was in great agony, feeling unbearable pain, and was covered in spots. System: exchange eater points for dew picked from 100 flowers. He commanded his system. I am exchanging one experience for the dew collected from 100 flowers, the system replied. The exchange was successful, Yi Xian's head said. He lifted Lu and brought the vial to her lips, looking hopefully at her pale face. Dew gathered from hundreds of flowers, a potion capable of neutralizing poisons and other injuries. It also works as an analgesic and speeds up recovery. The best means of treating wounds. Informed the system about the potion. After Lu drank the potion, her condition improved noticeably. The pallor began to fade from her face, and her breathing became more even. It was lucky that he had scored points when he was in the Lianyan Mountains. Otherwise, things would have ended up miserably, Yi Xian said thoughtfully. Yi Xian left the room so as not to disturb Lu. When he came out, he saw his uncle and the heads. Uncle looked anxiously at Yi Xian. Concern reflected in his eyes and asked, how is Lu doing? Is she feeling better? Yi Xian, relieved, replied that he had given her the legendary potion he had earned in the 18 mountains of Lianyan. After a good night's sleep, she would be healthy, he assured his uncle. Uncle was relieved and said that he was glad to hear that, seeing that he had not just regained his cultivation, but had become much stronger. Yi Xian's uncle was amazed at how quickly his grandson had progressed in his practice. Yes, after practicing for a long time and overcoming many dangers in the 18 Lianyan Mountains, he had finally reached the middle of the 5th cultivation level, he said proudly. It seems that something very good happened to you in the 18 Lianyan Mountains, the uncle said and smiled. He couldn't help but feel happy for his grandson, who had made a huge leap in his development in a few months. If he hadn't tried to pressure him, he wouldn't have left the Yi Manor. Then Lu would have been fine, one of the heads said. He realized that his harshness towards Xian had led to such consequences. It is their fault. Xian, hopefully he would let the past stay in the past and return to the Yi Manor, said hopefully uncle. He was willing to admit his mistakes and apologize to Yi Xian. Yi Xian replied with a smile, saying that he didn't think to blame them for what had happened. They were only worried about the well-being of the Yi family. He thought that his intemperance was to blame for the way things had turned out. He needs a lot of resources to activate the system. He was able to raise the level of 18 Lianyan Mountains, but that doesn't compare to supporting an entire clan, he thought. The blood of the Yi family flows in him, and he will be a part of it until the day he dies, Xian said firmly. Since they admitted that they were wrong, he will go out of his way to help them. Yi Xian thought and smiled without hiding his joy. One of the heads said, that's good. He said Xian was a very intelligent young man. There was no way he would make a scandal. Except that he has 2 conditions. Yi Xian said these words with cold certainty. If he agreed to return to the clan, he would do anything, the uncle said, promising his grandson anything to get him back. He wants there to be no trace left of the Chun clan. Yi Xian uttered these words with such hatred that uncle felt a chilly wind blowing from the depths of his soul. If we declare war on them, the Wu family will definitely take action. One of the heads began, his voice trembling with worry. He realized that a war with a powerful clan would inevitably cause a reaction from the other clans. Xian interrupted him, looking straight into his eyes, and proudly said, he had already killed the eldest son of the Qin family. His body lies in the Lianyan Mountains. These words sounded like a sentence, cold and irrevocable. Looks like there's no escaping the war, sighed my uncle, realizing the gravity of the situation. But they still need a plan. There are too many years here. Let's go to the main hall and discuss it quietly there, my uncle suggested. The head and Xian, all of them headed to the main hall together. The atmosphere was tense, each of them realizing the importance of the upcoming decisions. Once inside, everyone took their seats. Xian stood in the middle. Uncle, looking at Xian carefully, frowned. There was a sense of wariness in his voice when he asked that he already had some thoughts on the matter. Should he tell him? Xian nodded slightly and said that yes, he did have a plan, but it included a second condition. The head of the family tensed up, expecting to hear something important, and said he was all ears. Xian uttered calmly but firmly that he wanted all the heavenly and earthly treasures stored in the Yi family's treasury. These words caused an explosion of indignation. No way, shrieked one of the heads. The treasures belong to all the members of the Yi family. If he takes them all away, there will be no future for the clan. Not to say he wouldn't be able to use them all, the other head added, his voice shaking with disbelief. It seems that even the clan head still doesn't trust him. In that case, he will have to use cunning to prove his point, Yi Xian thought. Xian smiled demurely and raised his hands and said, well, gentlemen, there was no need to be so angry. Lin and Xian met a strange hermit in the mountains. However, it soon turned out that this hermit had great knowledge. It was he who helped Xian repair his damaged dantian. He said that he had a rare body structure called the devouring body. He taught him how to use this power, causing him to not only recover his dantian, but also reach the middle of the 5th level of martial arts, Yi Xian said. Uncle, frowning his eyebrows, asked, devouring the body, what was that even? He had never heard of something like that before. One of the heads didn't hesitate to say that the ability to absorb heavenly and earthly treasures, turning them into spiritual energy. He was beginning to feel like he was trying to trick them into obtaining the treasures of the Yi family. He might realize that it sounds unbelievable, but he is willing to demonstrate his strength if they need it, Yi Xian said confidently. The clan head thought for a moment and then asked how many treasures he needed to reach the next level. Xian thought about it and said that he thought he would need about 900,000 worth of resources. 900,000 for half a level. One of the heads exclaimed in surprise. It's too little. These resources are necessary for the young disciples of the Yi family to cultivate. They can't afford such a waste. Xian replied confidently that naturally he was not asking for these resources to be given to him for free. In return, he would personally contribute 2 level 5 battle techniques to the Yi family scrolls. It would make the clan stronger, after all. The elders looked at each other, realizing that such techniques could strengthen their family. Uncle said, 2 level 5 techniques. There's no evidence he'll do that. Leave us one technique, and when they test it, he'll get the resources. Then you can give them the other one, said one of the heads. Xian nodded and said that he was willing to write both techniques right now. Bring paper and ink. He was brought everything he needed and started writing 2 skills, which were Storm Blade Technique and Lightning Attack Step. When the scrolls were written, Uncle scrutinized them carefully and asked the Storm Blade Technique and Lightning Attack Step, was it taught to him by that hermit? Is he sure that the Yi family's disciples would be able to master them? Yes, it was that hermit who taught him those techniques, Xian confirmed. To him, they were nothing more than a pathetic toy. I don't think he would mind if the Yi family disciples used them. One of the heads very suspiciously said that lightning attack step. It was a really impressive technique. It would triple his strength. I think with this technique, he would even be able to handle Chunyu. The clan head has made a decision. Great. They're on the verge of war, and the stronger the Yi family becomes, the better for them. He will pass these scrolls to the disciples. Go to the treasury and bring Xian 900,000 worth of resources, and present him with the family's senior heir plaque, said the clan chief. All right, I'll be right there, said one of the heads, ready to carry out the order. The family head gave a stern look and added that he forbade divulging information about Xian's abilities and the techniques he brought. If he found out that the information was shared with anyone, they would have to blame themselves. All of the heads replied with a chorus that let the clan head not worry, because they would be as dumb as the grave. As he left, Xian said to let all the treasures be delivered to his room. By tomorrow, his level would already be higher, and tomorrow he'll show them his new powers. Hopefully that will convince them he's serious, and then he'll tell them his plan, he said with confidence in his voice. The clan head nodded approvingly and said, "So be it. Xian, you must be tired after all the adventures in the mountains. Rest in your room, and they'll discuss it in more detail tomorrow," the uncle suggested. When everyone dispersed, one of the heads was plotting something terrible and said that the heavens are on the side of the Yi family, Xian blessings sent to them by God. The next day came, and the Yi family's estate was in turmoil. Hurry up, the young master is waiting," said the gruff voice of the third steward. "If they keep the young gentleman waiting, blame yourself," he added menacingly. Already standing in front of Yi Xian's door, the steward said, "Young master, they brought the items he wanted." "Bring it inside," Xian threw. They brought the treasure box into his room, and one of the Nas said, "All done, sir." "Let me take my leave," said the servant, bowing. Xian didn't even turn around and said, "Well." The steward wanted to quickly leave Yi Xian's room as he knew that he had not forgotten that incident. But then he was called out by the young master's voice. "And you, with your pig face and big ears, stay," Xian said in a cold tone as he continued to drink his tea. "What can I do for you, young master?" stammered the steward in a frightened voice. A few days ago, the third steward was so bold and tough, Xian hissed, not taking his gaze off the servant. "It was just a misunderstanding." The steward began to justify himself. "He's finished. The young gentleman seems to be holding a grudge," he thought, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. "I guess we'll have to resort to that," the servant concluded. He was very anxious and prepared for the worst. "I beg your pardon, young master. He deserves to die. You should not have been so disrespectful to him. For the sake of all the gods, please spare him. I sincerely beg," the servant shouted, falling down in front of Yi Xian. He didn't even threaten him. Why was he so scared? Xian thought as he watched the trembling servant. Yi Xian sat down on a chair and said softly, "It seems that he really seems to be repenting. Good, he would give him another chance." "Thank you very much, young master," the servant smiled happily. "What can I do for you?" he asked with a sigh of relief. Yi Xian stood up and walked over to the servant, leisurely said that he wanted him to find out everything he could about Chun's son. Xian finished, a sinister glint appearing in his eyes. "About Chun's son?" the servant asked, perplexed. The expression on his face scares the hell out of him, the servant thought. "Nothing complicated. The son of his aunt's niece works under the Chun family. He will ask him to help," Stewart said cheerfully. Yi Xian approved of this and said that he didn't care exactly how he would do it. Just let him keep it in mind. The residents must not find out about it. "Don't worry, young master. He's as dumb as the grave," the steward said with confidence in his voice. "That's great. You can go now. If you do well, you'll be treated properly," Xian threw to the servant who was already leaving. Of course. Let me take my leave," the servant muttered, hurrying out of the room. Yi Xian opened the long-awaited treasure chest, and upon opening it, he saw a huge amount of valuable items to devour. "Awesome. Now he can level up," Xian laughed as he looked at the treasures. He touched the treasure and, activating his absorption skill, said Devouring. The Devouring was successful. He had reached the beginning of martial arts level 6, the system reported. Each level increase brought Xian a significant increase in strength. He could feel his body and spiritual power soaring to new heights. If he were to meet Chun Feng now, he would kill him with a single blow, Xian said proudly, not hiding his delight. A little while later, all the elders, the clan head, and Yi Xian gathered at the monument. There are 10 levels of martial arts. This monument is designed for the 6th level. If Xian smashed it with a single blow without using techniques, it would mean that he had reached the 6th level, remarked the head of the Yi family. Yi Xian concentrated incredible strength in his hand and was able to smash the monument with ease. Everyone was dumbfounded. He had actually reached the 6th level of martial arts, the clan head whispered, looking at Xian with admiration. "Amazing," one of the chapters said. "He's 15 years old, and he's already reached level 6. Even the Cut Cloud sect would call him a genius. They would definitely help him with cultivation," said another without hiding his surprise. Normal people would have to labor for months and years to get from one stage of a level to the next. And to think you passed half of the level overnight. Good for you. The head of the Yi family laughed happily. Well, it's not worth praising, Xian replied, embarrassed. If he had known that it took him about 5 minutes, his jaw would have dropped. Xian grinned at the thought. Right, Xian, what was your plan? Suddenly asked the head of the Yi family. It's as simple as that. For resources, he will teach them the techniques. It will make the family much stronger in terms of combat. Xian didn't hesitate to reply. With the resources, he will become even stronger, and after that, he will be able to destroy the Chun family in the coming war, Xian added with a fierce gleam in his eyes. Xian, it's not a bad idea, but I'm afraid their remaining resources won't be enough to bring him to the 7th level, said one of the Yi family heads doubtfully. Yi Xian suggested with a sly smile that it didn't matter because they could sell the martial techniques to the Lin family and buy a bunch of cultivation materials with the money. That sounds good and very reasonable. That's what we'll do, agreed family head Yi. Good. He'll write down the techniques, replied Xian. The next day, Yi Xian once again started composing techniques. All of the heads gathered around him. System, I want to acquire the techniques of level 5 Storm Bow, Bull Power, Demon Bear Paw, 5 Lightning Strikes, Meteor Sword Technique, and Tiger's Growl, Xian commanded, filling his body with energy. The exchange was successful. 9 Eater points spent, the system immediately responded and began giving him the power of these techniques. He had recorded many techniques, each of which had unique properties and concealed a power that could crush any opponent. This level 5 technique, Tiger's Growl, will cost at least 500,000, muttered one of the heads, looking at the description of a new technique with surprise. With these techniques, they will be able to deal with the Chun family, the clan head said confidently, looking at the techniques with admiration. Xian, please wait a moment. He will personally check the remaining resources in the treasury and send all of them to him, assured one of the heads. I'm counting on you, gentlemen, Xian said, looking at the head of the Yi family and his companions with confidence. Yi Xian headed to the backyard of Yi Manor, where Lu was resting in a quiet room. Walking into the room, he saw Lu sitting on the bed, and in a concerned and caring voice, he said, "Why is she up?" She had just come to her senses, better rest. Lifting her head and seeing Yi Xian, Lu immediately cried with joy and relief. She threw herself at Yi Xian with a hug and whispered in relief, "Young master," and she thought that she would no longer be able to serve him. Silly girl, he will never leave her. Yi Xian carefully spoke out, gently stroking her head. Lu's tummy made quiet but distinct sounds, making her blush slightly in embarrassment. She hastily covered her stomach with her hand and looked at Yi Xian, smiling guiltily. She must have gotten hungry in these 2 days. He will bring her something to eat, Yi Xian said, noticing her embarrassment and wanting to show concern. Sister Qingqing had already left to get food. Young master, will you stay with me for just a little while? Lu asked quietly, her voice sounding soft, with a slight pleading in her eyes. Xian was perplexed and asked, where did she go? They had enough food as it was. Lu replied that she said she knew of a restaurant that served food that accelerated recovery. Xian mouthed foolishly with a smile. She just wants something tasty. You could have said it directly. Young master, a letter has come for him. A servant knocked on the door and said, it's for him personally. Come in, Yi Xian allowed, frowning his eyebrows slightly, preparing for more news. He took out a letter that said that if Yi Xian wanted to save this girl, then let him come to the forest that was located 5 kilometers north of Lianyan. If they see that he is not alone, they will chop off the girl's hands. Who delivered this letter? Xian asked the servant. A fire lit up in his eyes, reflecting his inner tension and readiness for action. The man just threw it and ran away, the servant replied, visibly nervous under Yi Xian's gaze. Understood, dismissed, said Xian. Yes, sir, muttered the servant, hurriedly leaving the room. Master, what's wrong? Lu asked anxiously, noticing the change in Yi Xian's facial expression. That fool Qingqing forgot to take the money and asked him to help her out. Lu, you need a rest. He will order her to bring her some food, Xian replied. Okay, Lu agreed. though she could still hear the worry in her voice. She knew something serious was going on, but she tried not to show her fears. It was already evening when Yi Xian advanced into the forest, deftly crossing the trees like a shadowy ghost. His movements were silent and precise, taking every opportunity to hide in the darkness. Every rustle and rustle of leaves made him wary. Suddenly, he stopped, noticing the shadows lurking behind the trees. As he came closer, Yi Xian noticed two guards standing guard and Qingqing, bound and frightened. The situation was becoming more and more tense, and Yi Xian realized that his expectations were confirmed. This was indeed an ambush. "Damn, it's Chen Chang," he exclaimed with surprise and hatred after recognizing his opponent. Xian frowned thought, but why would he need Qingqing? The news that I killed Qin Feng has already spread. Xian, sinking into thought that they were waiting for him. He needed a plan. If he tried to just rush in, Qingqing would be in danger. "I've got it," Xian exclaimed, and a sly smile appeared on his face. A plan to outsmart the guards and save Qingqing was brewing in his mind. "System, I need a medium-quality black iron bow," Yi Xian quickly said, feeling the adrenaline pulsing in his veins. Exchange was successful. 2 eater points spent, System responded. A powerful bow appeared in Yi Xian's hands, glittering in the darkness of the forest. Now armed with his new weapon, he felt much more confident. Taking his bow, he drew the bowstring in preparation for his next action and took aim at the nearest guards with cold blood. The arrow whizzed through the air, piercing the heads of 2 guards. They froze in surprise, not realizing what had happened before they collapsed to the ground. Chen Chang shouted in anger, "Yi Xian, you won't get away from him so easily." His voice spread throughout the forest, full of rage and intent. "Hold them down. Don't let them escape," shouted Chen Chang, leading a squad of Chun family warriors who surrounded Yi Xian and Qingqing in the forest. Yi Xian threw the bow and arrow on the ground and looked at Chen Chang with a slight smile. Xian pulled out a sword from the spatial ring and said with disdain that the Chun family members were only capable of such despicable tricks. The yin-yang spatial ring curiously muttered to Chen Chang, recognizing the artifact that Xian did not hide. Yi Xian quickly moved towards Qingqing and cut the ropes that bound her. The ropes easily disintegrated under his razor-sharp blade. "Yi Xian, he finally came," Qingqing exclaimed with a jubilant smile, her voice trembling with relief and tears of joy glistening in her eyes. Chen Chang, while offering a deal, stated that if he gave them the spatial ring and level 5 battle techniques, he would forgive them for killing Chun Feng and let them go free. Xian, wary thought, how did he know that he possessed martial techniques, and that he had killed Chun Feng? Yi Xian frowned. His thoughts were preoccupied with what was happening. The information that the enemies knew about his martial techniques and killing Chun Feng was too accurate. Xian, thinking about the plan, thought that there were many enemies here. Besides, Qingqing would only get in the way. Yi Xian quickly assessed the situation, his mind working at the limit. "I guess we should just pretend to agree with them and then wait for an opportunity," he thought. Yi Xian smiled slyly as he continued to ponder that this was a good opportunity to get rid of them in one blow, leaving none alive. Yi Xian, turning to Qingqing, resolutely threw that he would deal with them. Let her run away. Qingqing flatly refused to leave and said that there was no way she would run away. He had come to save her, and she couldn't just leave him here. Xian, trying to convince the girl, sternly said that she would only be in the way. If she gets caught again, they'll be ruined. Let her be a good girl and obey him, he said. Decided what? Hurry up, Chun Chang shouted impatiently, his voice full of irritation. He was clearly starting to lose patience, not realizing that Yi Xian was only waiting for the right moment. Yi Xian, keeping his guard up, inquired, would he keep his word, let them go? His voice sounded calm, but inside he was wary, ready for any turn of events. Chen Chang, trying to convince Xian of his honesty, confidently stated that, of course, after all, his name is Chun Lao, and he always keeps his word. Yi Xian closed his eyes for a second to finally make a decision and said, okay, since it's like this. Yi Xian, definitely determined to use the situation to his advantage, said that he agreed. His voice sounded confident, but the energy inside him was boiling, ready for action. "Hey him, come on, quickly," threw Chun Chong to one of his warriors, pointing at Xian. The warrior reached out his hand towards Yi Xian impatiently and insistently said, "Come on, kid, hurry up." Yi Xian, feeling the pressure building up, only lightly chuckled to himself. He knew that he had to play by the rules to deceive his enemies and get a chance to escape. "Then catch it," Yi Xian shouted, swinging his sword sharply. His movements were swift and precise. He swung his sword and cut the warrior as if he were a piece of paper. Blood spurted from the wound, and the warrior fell to the ground before he realized what had happened. Chun Chong shouted that he was fed up with living. He would take everything he wanted just by killing him. His eyes flashed with hatred, and he stepped forward, preparing to attack, and said in a stern voice, "Attack." All the warriors immediately surrounded them and attacked like a pack of hungry predators, descending on Yi Xian. He instantly assessed the situation, and there was only one thing left to use all his skills to survive. Xian turned to the girl and said, "Run." His voice was filled with determination, but also anxiety. He realized that Qingqing shouldn't stay by his side in this chaos. Qingqing quickly retreated to a safe distance, assured Xian that she would bring help. Chun Chong ordered his soldiers to chase after the girl and said that she wouldn't run far. "We have to deal with Yi Xian first." Yi Xian began to be attacked by warriors under the orders of Chun Chong, who stood to the side, watching the developments with cold satisfaction. He killed several warriors with a single swing of his sword. Yi Xian's sword was so powerful that even the most experienced warriors didn't realize what had happened before they fell to the ground. This is the technique he used to kill Chen Feng. Chun Chong exclaimed in surprise as he watched Xian's powerful movements as he dodged his opponent's blows. "Awesome sight," muttered Chun Chong, watching Yi Xian's skill and watching the fight with admiration. When he mastered this technique, he would be able to compete with his older brother for the position of clan head, Chun Chong thought. He concentrated and began to form fire spells. While Yi Xian was fighting with one of the warriors, Chun Chong took advantage of the moment and began to attack. His eyes were burning with determination, and he sought to use every chance to crush his opponent. But Yi Xian was alert and was able to dodge with ease. Chun Chong, who was clenching his fists with envy, joyfully declared that he was fast. This must be another level 5 technique, he thought. Just as he thought, that old bastard from a Yi family didn't lie to me. Chun Chong challenged Xian that if he had the courage, let him fight him. "As you wish," Xian nonchalantly replied, confidently meeting Chun Chong's gaze, and the fire of struggle lit up in his eyes. Yi Xian swung his sword and swiftly attacked. His movements were fast and precise, like lightning piercing the sky. He activated the triple piercing Thunderblade technique, and 3 sparkling blades of light burst out from his sword, rushing towards his opponent. At this moment, his sword was filled with powerful energy. With incredible speed, he threw his hands forward the instant the blades were about to reach him. Chun Chong clenched his fists and struck each blade. The powerful technique was absorbed and dispersed by the strength of his hands alone. With undisguised hatred, Yi Xian, seeing how easily Chun Qian intercepted his attack, muttered that his claws were strong. Chun Qian asked irritably, was it true that he was able to reach the 6th level of martial arts? Not only envy, but also distrust could be heard in his voice. And how does he know this, since only his clan members should know about it? Yi Xian asked suspiciously, his eyes narrowed, filled with wariness. Chun Chong activated his technique with a sly smile and asked if he really wanted to know. He watched as irritation increasingly took hold of Yi Xian. Chun Chong abruptly lunged forward and shouted with fury for him to go to hell and ask Yama. His fist, surrounded by deadly energy, cut through the air, rushing straight towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian easily dodged, as if he had anticipated Chun Chong's attack. His movements were smooth and fast, like a predator playing with its prey. Yi Xian struck with his sword lightning fast. The sword blade flashed with a bright light, and the force of the strike was so powerful that the air around them trembled. Chun Chong barely had time to put up a defense, but the sword energy cut through it, leaving a deep cut on his armor. Following Yi Xian's attack, 2 elixir vials slipped out of Chun Chong's sinus. They instantly noticed it and rushed forward lightning fast, aiming to intercept the valuable potion. Each of them moved quickly, and they managed to grab 1 vial at a time, barely touching the ground. Examining the vial, Yi Xian noticed the inscription on the label and, with narrowing eyes, said regeneration potion. Looks like he needed it, Yi Xian said with a sneer as he looked at Chun Chong, who was looking at him impatiently and angrily. Well, he wouldn't say no either, Xian continued, quickly stashing the potion in the Eater dimension, realizing that every little thing could make the difference in this fight. Chun Chong clenched his teeth, irritably muttered that escaping from here was easy, but he absolutely did not expect that this kid would be so much trouble. Chun Chong desperately thought, screw it. Without this, he would definitely die. He remembered the last hope in his hands and quickly opened the vial without hesitation and swallowed the pill. Immediately afterward, energy began to rapidly fill him. He could feel every cell being filled with power. This was a pill that could greatly enhance his fighting ability for a short period of time. Yi Xian retreated a few times, trying to assess the situation and keep his distance. He knew that Chun Chong, who had just taken the pill, was now much stronger than before. Explosive chi pill, Yi Xian exclaimed loudly and hatefully, his eyes flashing with anger. He realized that this pill was giving Chun Chong a temporary but significant increase in strength, and it was too dangerous. Chun Chong exclaimed with confidence and pride, "She is the very one." The energy of the explosion chi pill boiled inside him, and he could feel his strength increasing. The chi blast pill temporarily makes a person a whole level stronger. In rare cases, as much as 2, Chun Chong said proudly, his eyes sparkling with excitement and confidence. Chun Chong exclaimed that the heavens themselves were on his side. His strength was now akin to a 7th-level martial artist. His voice sounded as if he had already tasted victory. Chun Chong, with a determined face, began to advance. He shouted that it was his time to die. With incredible speed, he began to approach. His movements were full of strength and determination. Yi Xian immediately drew his sword. His movements were swift and confident. He felt the cold steel in his hands fill him with energy. Yi Xian swung his sword with confidence and precision, and the tip of his sword collided with Chun Chong's body. In the blink of an eye, the sword cut through the air and pierced the opponent, cutting him in half. But it turned out to be his double. Suddenly, he felt a cold wind blowing across his back and instantly turned around. Chun Chong, with a piercing gaze, appeared behind him, ready to attack. Yi Xian hurriedly turned around to face Chun Chong, his sword already ready to attack. He concentrated, feeling the adrenaline surging in his veins, and the moment Chun Chong struck. Chun Xian used his technique to grab Yi Xian's sword with his bare, fire-covered hands. Bright flames burst out from his palms, creating an aura of danger around him. Chun Xian broke Yi Xian's sword, and with fury in his eyes, he delivered a crushing blow to his chest. And with hatred, he told him to die. Yi Xian clenched his teeth, and a stream of blood came out his mouth. He felt pain surging through his body. Following this strike, Yi Xian was swiftly thrown back by the force of Chun Xian's powerful attack. However, while still in the air, he pulled out a powerful weapon, a bow made of black iron from the spatial ring. Concentrating his strength, he drew the bowstring and unleashed a powerful attack of 5-star spheres. Chun Chong, with rage sparkling in his eyes, shouted at him to give him the spatial ring and he would grant him a quick death. His face was distorted with anger. He easily blocked Yi Xian's attack, repelling it with a powerful arm defense. He instantly rushed to counterattack, his movements swift and precise. With each blow, he increased his power, aiming directly at the vulnerable spots, intending to end the fight as quickly as possible. At this moment, Chun Chong asked a question, full of anger and rage. What to do? Suddenly, Xian remembered the existence of the pills, and a mischievous glint lit up in his eyes. Yi Xian realized that he was in a difficult situation and concentrated and recited the devouring system to himself. A moment later, his body was filled with spiritual energy thanks to the elixir. The system said 1,000 units of spiritual power were obtained. The system reported that he had reached the late stage of level 6 martial arts. The eater's points have increased by 6. He exclaimed triumphantly. Shockingly, he was able to reach the late stage of the 6th level martial arts. He thought that now he needed to get close to Qin Xian before he could escape into defense. Then he would be able to stun him with a tiger roar and bring down his level 5 sound technique. Chun Chong, still not understanding what was happening, asked wryly and with irritation. Had he figured out how he wanted to die? Yi Xian replied with a challenge that he would die today. His voice was cold and full of confidence, as if he had already seen the outcome of the battle. Gathering all his strength, he prepared for the decisive strike. Chun Xian, covering himself with flames and directing it toward Xian, roared that he was right in the face of death, but he still didn't recognize it. Qin Chong used his strongest fire technique with all his fury. His body burst into flames, and he unleashed an attack on Yi Xian. Yi Xian was thrown back, his body hitting the ground with force. He lay motionless, his strength seemingly exhausted. A moment of silence hung over the battlefield, giving the impression that the outcome of the battle was a foregone conclusion. Qin Chong was confident of his victory and walking over to his body, disdainfully threw finally he died. With undisguised pride, Chun Chong continued that he could be proud of himself, as he was the first of his generation to be able to make him tense up like this. If he had 3 more years, he might have become the strongest in the city. Chun Chong, examining Xian's body, shouted, "And where the ring can't be, he definitely got the sword and bow with it." Suddenly, Yi Xian opened his eyes, in which a flame of determination flared up. His body, which had seemed lifeless, was once again filled with strength. And concentrating all his strength, he used the tiger roar technique. The powerful sound resounded with such force that it seemed as if the earth itself shook. This sudden explosion of energy rained down on the enemy, stunning and injuring him, causing a wave of shock that literally knocked him off his feet. A deep gash appeared on his body, and blood gushed out of it, staining the ground around him. At this time, Qingqing ran as hard as she could, looking for help. Her breathing was getting faster and her legs were burning with fatigue, but no obstacle could stop her. Hearing the crows fly away from the battlefield, Qingqing felt a chill of fear run down her back. She thought of Xian anxiously, imagining him fighting danger on the battlefield. Her heart filled with fear, and she slowed down, realizing that every second could cost him his life. Chun Chong bewilderedly asked why he was alive. His voice sounded full of surprise and anger. He couldn't understand how Yi Xian, whom he had inflicted so much damage on, had managed to survive. Xian replied with a chuckle as he twirled around in the air. He took a small taste of the white flower tincture. It heals all wounds and restores spiritual strength. Truly, the world's best medicinal potion. Pulling out his sword and putting it to Chun Chong's throat, Xian said, he would ask again how he knew the internal affairs of the Yi family. His voice sounded cold and confident, and his eyes reflected determination. Chun Chong felt the sharp blade of the sword pressed against his skin, and a sense of unease grew within him. Some time passed, and Qingqing saw a dark figure up ahead. Her heart beat faster when she realized that it could be Xian or one of the opponents. When she saw the familiar figure, she exclaimed Yi Xian. Her voice sounded relieved and happy, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She quickly approached him and with concern in her voice asked if he was okay and where those people were. Yi Xian replied calmly that he was fine and those people were gone. Let's go back to the Yi Manor. Qingqing's heart was filled with relief when he said that he was fine despite the difficulty of the battle, and approvingly said, well, they had already returned to the Yi family's manor, where silence reigned, interrupted only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. At this late evening, Yi Xian's uncle was still busy in his office sorting out the technician scrolls. Seeing his nephew enter his office, the uncle joyfully and surprisedly exclaimed, "Xian?" Looking at his nephew with satisfaction, his uncle said that he was just in time. After all, he had finished transcribing most of the technique scrolls. "Can we go to the Lin family tomorrow?" he asked. Yi Xian looked at his uncle in bewilderment and asked in the middle of the night, "What happened?" Uncle, not understanding the question, repeated in the middle of the night, "What happened?" His expression became more serious, and a slight anxiety could be heard in his voice. Xian, looking his uncle in the eyes calmly and proudly, said that he had killed Chun Chang. His voice sounded confident, and he realized that this statement would change a lot of things. Uncle was so dumbfounded by what he heard, he involuntarily spat out the tea he had just brought to his mouth. He instantly jumped up from his seat and quickly walked over to Yi Xian, grabbed his shoulders, and asked with concern in his voice if he was injured. His gaze darted around, trying to find even the slightest sign of injury. Yi Xian calmly looked at the worried uncle and quietly but confidently said that he was in good order. Chun Qin was at the late stage of the 6th level of martial arts. He was ranked 4th in strength in the Chun family. Uncle said thoughtfully as he reflected on what he had heard. If he was able to kill him, that means... Xian, no longer hiding his strength, calmly replied that something unexpected happened during the battle, and he was able to reach the late stage of the 6th level martial arts. After which, he killed him with a tiger roar. Uncle, he said he was glad he was all right. But why did he kill him? Had the Chun family already found out about what had happened to Chen Feng? He gestured for Yi Xian to sit down, adding, "Don't just stand there, have a seat." Sitting down next to Uncle, Yi Xian thoughtfully began that they didn't know anything yet. However, he was silent for a moment, realizing that he would soon have to say something much more important. "There is a traitor in the Yi family's ranks," Yi Xian finally uttered, his voice becoming serious and tense. The head of the Yi family exclaimed, "Traitor who?" His voice trembled with disbelief and indignation. He stared at Yi Xian intently, waiting for an explanation, not believing that such a thing was possible within their own clan. Yi Xian, meeting his uncle's gaze with confidence, said that it was the head elder. The clan head, hearing this, flashed a vicious glance full of rage and betrayal. The head of the family asked if he was sure. His voice became cold and wary. He had to try his best to crack Chun Qing. Yi Xian said, his voice sounding resolute. The elder had lost the Chun family 20 million in bets, so he was being blackmailed. He acted so that he wouldn't die. Uncle hit the table with such force that the cup shook, and with fury in his voice, shouted out, "The bastard, gambling bastard! How dare he betray the Yi family?" "Xian, learn something else?" Uncle asked, trying to regain his composure, but his voice still sounded tense. Yi Xian's facial expression turned serious, and he said that if Chun Qing was to be believed, the Chun family had recently tried to make contact with the Wu family. "Contact?" Uncle interjected, not believing his ears. The Chun and Wu families had joined forces? His voice was filled with anxiety, and he looked at Yi Xian in bewilderment as he tried to realize the seriousness of this information. He was thinking about it too. Yi Xian confirmed, clenching his fist tightly. "This merger does not bode well for our family." "He's right," Uncle agreed, his voice becoming more resolute. "Looks like it will be better to go to the Lin family right now." It took them several hours to reach the Lin family. It wasn't a long way, and the tension in the air grew with every step. Mr. Lin was very happy to see them, and with a slight ironic smile, said, "And to what does he owe such an unexpected visit?" His smile grew warmer as he said he was glad to see his nephew in good health. "I think he has already regained his strength." So the rumors weren't lying. He really was able to restore the destroyed Dantian. Yi Xian said with gratitude in his voice that it was all thanks to those 2 pills. Uncle Lin asked with a soft but with a note of regret in his voice. Yi Xian was still upset that they had broken off the engagement, right? Yi Xian looked at Uncle Lin, calmly replied that he didn't understand him. He was indeed very grateful. "I apologize," Uncle Lin said, his voice sounding with genuine regret. The Lin family had treated him unkindly. He looked at Yi Xian with a cheerful twinkle in his eyes, and said that he would order a couple of unmarried girls from the Lin family to be brought here right now. You could choose whichever one you like. What do you think? He asked. Mr. Lin, please don't joke around like this, Yi Xian replied with restraint, remaining calm. To choose, Yi Xian thought to himself, giving a brief chuckle. I want them all at once, he began to imagine. Lin, stop messing around with him, Yi Xian's uncle said seriously, his tone becoming more stern. He persisted, saying that he had come here at this late hour on a very important matter. Handing the head of the Lin family the newly written technique scrolls, he said, Here, take a look at this. He took these scrolls, his eyes widened in surprise, and he couldn't believe his eyes and exclaimed that these were level 5 techniques. And no one in the city knows about them. Mr. Lin, raising his eyebrows in bewilderment, sternly asked, And what is the meaning of this, Brother Yi? Uncle said emphatically, cut to the chase, he wants to make a deal with him. And he's got a whole bunch of level 4 and 5 techs. He wants to sell them to the Lin family. Uncle continued to say in a confident voice. Mr. Lin's eyes filled with surprise and bewilderment, and he exclaimed, Sell them to him? These are all techniques that Lin Yuan doesn't know about. Exactly. But there is one important condition, the uncle continued, his tone becoming more serious. Which one? Mr. Lin asked, his interest piqued, and he was willing to listen to the terms of the deal. Uncle replied that what he needed as payment was not gold. He wanted cultivation consumables, natural gems, heavenly and earthly treasures, as many of any level as you can get a night. Mr. Lin's face lit up with a smile, and he exclaimed naturally, I will start collecting them right away. He continued happily, not doubting the favorability of the offer. Yi Xian, observing Mr. Lin's enthusiasm, thought that since he had bought more than a dozen level 5 techniques without blinking an eye, it seems that the Lin family was much richer than the Yi family. When head Lin returned then, Brother Yi said his servants were already collecting the items. He would have them soon. Uncle, finishing his tea, seriously said that since they had sorted it out, they should now move on to what he had come for. Head Lin, not realizing the catch, asked, Not for the sake of selling techniques? And what is he trying to get him into? He had received confirmed information that the Chun and Wu families had joined forces, the uncle said, and there was seriousness in his voice and a glint of wariness in his eyes. They have decided to form an alliance, exclaimed Head Lin, with disbelief in his voice. Without hiding the seriousness of the situation, Uncle replied that it was so. They stood shoulder to shoulder to destroy the Yi family. He understood everything, Brother Yi. Don't worry, he won't meekly wait for the fall of the Yi family, confidently replied the head of the Lin family, supporting his ally. After shaking hands, Head Lin earnestly said that they were brothers until death. His voice sounded firmly pronouncing the oath. Both in sickness and in health, my uncle added, solemnly continuing their long-standing vow. Xian, hearing their strange oath, uncertainly muttered, Fuck, this is kinda gay. Chief Lin said that the most important thing in clan battles is to have the strongest members of the clans fight. The ruler of Wutian City has the 8th level of martial arts, and only his father can match him. He went on to say with confidence that he was now living in seclusion. They should not underestimate their enemies. When his father returns, they will sweep away the Wu and Chun families. Elder Lin will soon reach the 9th level. The Yi family head asked in surprise, with undisguised admiration in his voice. Congratulating him in advance, the head of the Yi family replied, with a respectful smile upon hearing the news of his future accomplishments. With a slight smile and proudly straightening up, the head of the Lin family replied that he gladly accepted the congratulations. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and a servant's voice was heard, saying that it looked like the cultivation resources were ready, already escorting them. The head of the Lin family, confidently glancing at his allies, said that everything was ready, Brother Yi. He assigned people to escort them home. The head of the Lin family, sincerely looking into the eyes of his interlocutor, said, All the best, brother. I hope to see you again, replied the head of the Yi family, his voice full of confidence. They traveled back with an escort and a huge wagon filled with cultivation resources. The wagon was packed with valuable materials that promised to enhance strength. Xian, Will this be enough for you to advance to the next level? The head of the Yi family asked, scrutinizing the young warrior. His voice was full of expectation, and he sincerely hoped for his nephew's success. Quite. There are just enough resources here to reach the 7th level of martial arts. Xian replied confidently, feeling a surge of energy and determination. Excitement burned in his eyes. While they were talking behind their backs, hiding in the shadows, a group of men in black robes followed along the rooftops. Their movements were silent, and they blended into the night gloom, watching their target's every move. The head of the Yi family, not hiding his pride in Yi Xian, exclaimed amazingly, "He's only 15 years old, and he's already reached the 7th level. If he were to join the Liyun sect one day, he would be taken as a disciple by the leader of the Liyun sect himself," the head of the Yi family said, envisioning his son's bright future. But at that moment, the black-clothed men silently overtook them. Yi Xian, catching a barely audible rustle behind him, became alert. He discreetly looked around, feeling the tension engulf his muscles, and realized they were being followed. And when that happens, the status of the Yi family, he started to say, but he didn't have time to finish as a black-clothed shadow suddenly descended on him from above. Carefully, Yi Xian shouted, moving forward with lightning speed. In a matter of seconds, he was next to his uncle, standing between him and the attackers. Yi Xian reacted quickly. He reached out his hand lightning fast and intercepted the stranger's punch, stopping him at the last moment. However, the enemy's force was so powerful that Yi Xian was thrown back slightly. An ambush? Could they be from the Lin family? Yi Xian wondered, suspecting allies. "Attack!" the unknown man ordered, his voice sounding harsh and ruthless. At his signal, the dark figures rushed forward, surrounding Yi Xian and ready to strike from all sides. The combined attacks of 2 Apex Level 6 warriors could be a problem even for someone from the middle of Level 7. Family Head Yi reflected, realizing the seriousness of the situation. "Things are bad," he whispered, watching anxiously as the black shadows that surrounded Xian attacked with ruthless coherence. The head of the Yi family worriedly said, "Trouble. This is the Wu family's technique of jointly attacking the floating fish." It became clear to Yi Xian that if it was the Lin family's doing, they would have chosen a different moment to attack. Looking at the old man, Yi Xian said that he too was struggling to survive. This inspired him even more. He knew that they must fight together to overcome this threat, and he immediately rushed forward to attack, thinking that he needed to deal with this as quickly as possible. Yi Xian, gathering all his strength, rushed forward towards the enemy. The man in black used a powerful technique, but Yi Xian dodged it. Surprised, he thought it was an exploding thunder fist. He continued to reason with this person from the Chun family. He didn't expect him to take them on so quickly. Yi Xian used the thunder step technique. His figure blurred in the air, leaving behind only a trail of swift movement. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian was beside the enemy and struck with such force that he flew back several meters, hitting the ground hard. Yi Xian, clenching his fist, said that he would find out whose faces were hidden under the masks. The determination in his voice was unyielding. He instantly sped up and reached for the mask of one of the opponents as he took aim. Yi Xian's hand moved swiftly, ready to tear off this symbol of mystery and find out who was hiding underneath. The enemy was stunned by Yi Xian's incredible speed and didn't even have time to move. In an instant, Yi Xian's hand ripped off the mask, and his opponent's face was revealed in front of him. Seeing a familiar face, he recoiled, not believing his eyes, and said, "So this, was he the first elder?" Yi Xian didn't have time to get the information out of him before he sensed the impending danger behind him. He didn't have time to react, but in the next instant a powerful blow struck him in the back, throwing him right back into the wagon. The wagon flipped over from this impact, and all the contents spilled out onto the ground. But suddenly, his gaze fell on the cultivation chest that had fortunately not been damaged when the wagon overturned. Quickly walking over to the chest, he touched it and with a smile on his face said, "Devour." The system said that the devouring was complete. He had reached the initial stage of level 7 martial arts. 6 eater points have been obtained. Yi Xian decided to use the new spatial ring technique. He concentrated, and a shimmering aura appeared around him. This technique allowed him to manipulate space. The enemy, stunned by the incredible technique, exclaimed, "Spatial ring. It might as well be. Why? Do you want to take it away?" Yi Xian said with mockery in his voice, looking at his enemy. Yi Xian continued with confidence, then bowed his head and acknowledged his superiority. These words only infuriated his opponent, who exclaimed with indignation, "You insolent little brat." In the blink of an eye, the enemy rushed towards Yi Xian, his body rushing towards Yi Xian, rage glittering in his eyes. However, Yi Xian was prepared. In his mind, everything was happening in slow motion. The black masked man aimed a powerful punch, hoping to nullify young Yi Xian's audacity. However, all of his attacks were useless, as Yi Xian easily dodged them. His skills and quick reaction time allowed him to anticipate his opponent's movements, and every time he was one step ahead. Yi Xian concentrated all his power in his hand and, gathering his wits, stabbed it straight into his enemy's chest. Yi Xian ripped out his enemy's heart with determination, and at this moment, everything around him seemed to stop. Everyone around them froze, breathless and stunned at what had happened. Yi Xian grinned and easily crushed the enemy's heart in his hand. This was a symbol of his victory and determination not to rest on his laurels. Seeing Yi Xian ruthlessly killing, the first elder cried out in horror and tried to run away, unable to believe his eyes. His heart was pounding with fear. Yi Xian, looking at the retreating first elder, coldly threw, trying to escape. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the first elder, blocking his escape route. With a strong kick of his foot, he broke the elder's leg, and he collapsed to the ground, letting out a desperate cry. The remaining allies, realizing that they could not win, said that plans were changing and it was time for them to retreat. Seeing that they were trying to escape, Yi Xian took out his bow and said, "Do you think you would let them escape after something like this?" Taking aim, Yi Xian uttered with cold determination that everything must be paid for. Gathering all his strength, he released arrows with incredible accuracy, piercing through the bodies of the retreating enemies. Walking up to them, Yi Xian looked at them with disgust and removed their masks, revealing their faces. The clan head, looking at the recognized opponents with horror, exclaimed, "So it really was Elder Shuangzi of the Wu family." Yi Xian threw a glance at the first elder and said that this seemed to be their head elder. The clan head, approaching the first elder with anger, asked why he betrayed the Yi family. Did he have debts again? The traitor, upon hearing the clan head's words, was surprised to interrogate the debts. "God, Yi Zhang, he's such a fool." Yi Xian joined the conversation and asked, "And then what did he receive from the Chen family?" "Even this little shit is smarter than him," the traitor replied wryly, his face twisted in mockery. Yi Xian said with a slight chuckle, "Let me guess, he was offered the position as the head of the Yi family, right?" The head of the Yi family, looking at the traitor with disdain, threw, "So this is what he wanted." The traitor claimed that the Chun family had promised that he would become the new head of the Yi family after this mission. Yi Xian, how did he realize it? Wondered the traitor, not believing that his secret thoughts were so easily revealed. Yi Xian grinned and said that he could tell right away. He was beckoned and waved his tail. Looking at him with contempt, he continued, "And beckoned with what? Either money or power. And money, as he said himself, is of no concern to him." And he spoke so disrespectfully to the head of the clan that the answer appeared on its own. He and his wishes that he would forfeit the Dantian, Yi Xian said menacingly, swinging at the clan traitor. "Don't even think about it," the traitor shouted, and desperate hope gleamed in his eyes. He punched him in the stomach. The sphere protecting him shattered under the force of the blow. Yi Xian, satisfied with his work, thought it was him, the old one, who was making things difficult when he was trying to make contact with the Yi family. He would not forgive such a thing. The clan head said that tomorrow he would judge him to the full extent of the family's laws in front of the rest of the family. Yi Xian replied that he hoped so. The traitor laughed merrily and said that if they didn't return, they would attack the Yi family very soon. There was a gloating sound in his voice, then said that if he didn't become the head of the Yi family, then there was no reason for him to exist. He violently laughed as he put the force to his head and, with a cry of despair, destroyed himself. The head said that from the looks of it, the Chun and Wu families have been preparing for something like this for a long time, and this puts them in a bad position. This should take them by surprise before they gather all their power. They need to team up with the Lin family and attack the Chun family, and with the Wu family. Until Old Man Lin returns from his hermitage, they have to wait. The clan head said to Xian, contact the Lin family, and he would go back to the Yi manor and gather the people. Meet me near the Chun manor. Yi Xian, full of determination and readiness, replied that he understood everything. One foot here, the other foot there. After gathering all their men, Yi Xian and Head Lin headed towards the Chun family's manor, ready for the decisive battle. Their attacks were merciless and fast, killing everyone in sight. Yi Xian and Head Lin led the army, commanding each troop with precision and determination. A man's voice came from the backyard of the manor, saying, "Girls, come on, don't run away." "And catch us," said a woman's voice. They were playing tug-of-war. A blindfolded man said, "Behave yourself and come to me." Female voices teased, "If you want to catch us." "Got you, rabbit," he said, catching the girl. "He is such a varmint," laughed the girl. Yi Xian, hearing those voices, came closer. He jumped on the roof to get a better view of what was going on. He saw a man come closer and say she was a bad girl. He would eat her for that. "Young master, what is he doing?" the girl protested. Yi Xian realized that he had a great chance to kill this man. He took out his bow and took aim. The arrow struck the target with perfect accuracy, and the man collapsed instantly, struck dead. The girl froze in horror. When she saw the decapitated man, she screamed, piercing the silence with her desperate cry. Head Chun, upon hearing the piercing screams, instantly became alarmed and asked what had happened. One of his men called back the head. "Bad news. Yi and Lin families, they attacked us. Most of their men are already dead. They won't last long," the subordinate replied with panic in his voice. Head Chun roared, "A bunch of idiots. Gather all the remaining men in the backyard. They will fight under his leadership," he ordered. Meanwhile, the battle continued. Chin's men fell one after another, struck by the arrows shot with Yi Xian's precision. He took a high position in a tree, from where he could better observe the battlefield and follow the movements of his enemies. Yi Xian released 3 arrows at once, and each of them accurately hit the target, crushing the opponents who didn't have time to react to his attack. He figured he had enough skill to hit enemies both left and right with only a slight bend in the bowstring. When they disperse the Chun family, he will devour their treasures and use the points gained to improve the star arrow. Seeing the head of the Yi family from afar, who was ruthlessly destroying his men, Head Chun shouted with rage, "Yi Chong, you old bastard." He instantly covered the distance to Yi Chong raising his sword. Head Chun shouted with fury in his eyes, "Die." "You're just in time," replied Head Chun, concentrating all his strength in his right hand. Their forces collided with unimaginable power, and an explosion occurred at the point of impact, deafening everything around them. All the people converged in one place where a fierce battle broke out. Yi Xian, seeing all the people gathered in one place, thought that everything was settled. Moving stealthily across the rooftops, he realized that the Chun family was finished, and this was the perfect time to raid their treasury. Seeing the majestic building in front of him, Yi Xian froze for a moment and thought that she must be the hidden treasure of the Chun family. Opening the door to the treasury, Yi Xian saw many shelves in front of him, stacked with drawers and boxes. When he opened one of the boxes, he was surprised and disappointed to say that these were 30-year-old wild mountain ginseng and 50-year-old pearls. Looking at the shelves, Yi Xian thought that it was very strange. After all, these were the most common medicinal remedies. The Chun family is the 3rd largest in Lingyan City. They can't be poorer than the Yi family. Yi Xian's realization means there's a secret room. It must be around here somewhere. It's where all the treasures of the Chun family are. A flame of hope ignited in his mind, and he began to scrutinize the treasury for hidden mechanisms. Sliding the candle to the side, Yixin suddenly saw one of the walls of a shelf quietly ajar, revealing a secret door. He exclaimed, "Bingo!" Having already absorbed everything, Yixin comes out of the treasury and says, "God, how many resources were in the Chun family's treasury?" Not only had he managed to reach the middle of the 7th level of martial arts, but he had also awakened a rare heredity, Yixin thought, feeling the confidence and strength building up in him. The system reported that the bloodline of 100 beasts required devouring the blood essence of 100 rank 7 demonic beasts in order to be fully revealed. Once progress is completed, it simply increases the host's physical strength incredibly. Yixin, looking over his new ability, said that he would probably have to go to the mountains one more time to hunt demonic beasts. He needs to deal with the Chun family and Wu family first. This task was his first priority. Going back and making his way through the crowd, he asked one of the servants what the situation was like. The servant replied that the Wu families took advantage of the attack on the Chun family. They divided the people into 2 groups and attacked both the Yi family and the Lin family. Old man, he gathered all the city guards. They surrounded the Chun estate. How does he know that? Yixin asked, wary. The servant replied that Wu Tian had just told him. He came and advised them to surrender. I don't know if he was telling the truth or not. Damn old man, fuck him, Yixin exclaimed, not hiding his annoyance. Yixin walked over to his uncle and anxiously said, "The Wu family is not attacking yet. Once they attack the Yi and Lin families, they would take the old people and children hostage. Then everything would be over. He thinks they should attack first and sweep them away with one solid attack," he suggested. Uncle looked at Yixin and said that they didn't know what Wu Tian was up to yet. Attacking them right now was not only difficult, but also not the wisest thing to do. The clan head noticed that Wu Tian was at the 8th level of martial arts, didn't think that even the 5 of them would be able to handle him. Not to mention, there are several people in the Wu family who have reached the 7th level. "Leave Wu Tian to me," Yixin calmly replied, looking straight into the eyes of his uncle and the other warriors. His voice sounded confident, and everyone felt that he was really ready for this fight. The clan head and elders looked at him in surprise and exclaimed with glee, "What? Xian, don't make such a stupid decision. He is the future of the Yi family after all," the clan head exclaimed, his voice trembling with worry. Yixin replied that uncle shouldn't worry. He knows what he is doing. His voice was calm and confident. He's already mastered several techniques of level 7 and has reached the middle of it. He doesn't say he'll take him down easily, but he refuses to lose to him. Yixin calmly explained that they would have to deal with the warriors who had reached the 7th level of martial arts. After that, they should help him with Wu Tian. "Yeah, have it your way," my uncle said at last, sighing tiredly. "Just be careful. You understand me?" A little time passed, and Yixin took out his bow and told the system to exchange the Devourer points for the Chaos Star Arrow improvement. The system announced that 20 OPs have been spent. The exchange was successful. Star Arrow of Chaos has reached the 7th level of martial arts. In the courtyard of the Wu family's manor, the head pronounced that the Yi and Lin families, he addresses them, gives them time while the incense is burning. At its expiration, mark his word, they will pay for what they have done. At this time, Yixin climbed onto the roof of one of the buildings in the manor and took a comfortable position. From there, he could observe the movements of all the enemies and assess the situation, preparing for a surprise attack. Yixin took out his bow and drew the bowstring and aimed the arrow straight at the head of the Wu family. His voice echoed over the courtyard, piercing the tense silence of Wu Tian. "Fight me, if you are brave enough." Yixin, gathering all his strength and concentration, released a multitude of arrows that swiftly rushed towards the target. Wu Tian growled that they had sneaky tricks again. His voice was filled with anger and rage. Wu Tian, noticing the approaching arrows, quickly put up a protective barrier, and a bright flash of energy appeared around him. However, despite his efforts, Yixin's arrows pierced the barrier, shattering it like fragile glass. In an instant, with incredible agility, he managed to catch one of the arrows with his hand preventing it from doing any harm. But all of Yi Xian's other arrows pierced through Wu Tian's men, wreaking havoc and destruction among his warriors. Wu Tian's face contorted with concentration and rage as he clenched the arrow in his fist and said, "How dare he attack his children in front of him? He would pay 100-fold for this." He then asked, "He is the Yi Xian of the Yi family, right?" Yi Xian, without retreating a single step, nodded proudly and confidently and said that yes, he was the one. Taking out his bow, Yi Xian began to take aim. His voice sounded resolute, and he said that if he still didn't think of fighting him, he would continue to destroy the younger generation of the Wu family. The Wu clan heads clenched his fists, his face contorted with a grimace of pain and rage. He said that he had to admit that he was worthy of honor. Rosie had reached the 7th level of martial arts at such a young age. With these words, he headed towards Yi Xian with lightning speed, his intentions clear. He added that he would show respect for his will. At this moment, the door to the Wu Manor was kicked open with a foot by the head of the Yi clan, who entered with a powerful push like a hurricane. The clan head, with a bright fire in his eyes, shouted forward to kill for the clan. With these words, the Yi family warriors, inspired by their leader's determination, rushed into battle. Meanwhile, a fierce battle broke out between Yi Xian and Wu Tian. Yi Xian drew the bowstring with force, firing several arrows towards his opponent, but Wu Tian easily dodged them. Wu Tian slowly approached, his eyes burning with determination. However, Yi Xian was not one to give up. He skillfully kept his distance, not allowing his opponent to get too close. Wu Tian didn't waste any time and decided to use his signature technique. In the blink of an eye, he shortened the distance to Yi Xian and attacked, but the latter dodged the blow with astonishing reaction. Dodging Wu Tian's strike, Yi Xian cast a quick glance at the battlefield and was startled to see another opponent suddenly attacking his uncle from above. Anxiety boiled up inside him, and he did not hesitate to draw the bowstring, releasing an arrow towards his uncle and piercing the body of his attacker. Wu Tian angrily said, "Fool, do you think you can afford to help others by fighting him? He'll have to pay for it." He, with lightning speed, shortened the distance to Yi Xian and attacked with incredible strength. Yi Xian didn't have time to react, and the powerful punch made him spurt blood. Wu Tian grabbed his head, concentrated the power in his hand, and with a menacing exclamation, said die. But suddenly, an object was thrown at Wu Tian with great speed, causing him to dodge and let go of Yi Xian. Yi Xian and Wu Tian froze, tracing their gazes after the thrown object that was thrown. When they looked closer, they realized with horror that it was a severed head thrown with brutal force. Wu Tian looked closely and recognized the familiar face, but his eyes suddenly froze and filled with tears. As if he couldn't believe what he saw, he whispered, and then, breaking into a scream, his father exclaimed. Looking around, Wu Tian noticed a dark figure standing on the roof in the distance. Clenching his fists, Wu Tian exclaimed at Lin Xiao with hatred in his voice. Lin Xiao calmly looked at him. His gaze was cold and full of contempt. Wu Tian, clenching his teeth and trying to hold back tears, asked through rage was he the one who killed his father? Lin Xiao approached and said that he was unlucky he had attacked Lin Manor just after he had moved to the next level. If it had happened an hour earlier, the Wu family would have ruled the entire city by morning. But it just so happened that he had literally just reached the 9th level of martial arts. Therefore, neither he nor his subordinates had a chance of success. Wu Tian, shocked by what he heard, exclaimed in wonder, how did he reach the 9th level of martial arts? Impossible. Father said that at his age, it was very problematic to ascend to the heavens and start cultivating. The two of them should never have achieved more than that in their lives. His father was right, Wu Tian replied with disdain. He needed Elder Yu's guidance for this, and people of great strength would always find a way to raise their level. Surrender now, and he will let him live. He will only pay for it with his dantian, Ling Xiao said, his voice sounding cold and ruthless. Wu Tian, rushing forward with fury and determination burning in his eyes, exclaimed surrender. Never. One of them will die today. Ling Xiao gathered all his power, concentrating it in his hand, and forcefully directed it directly at Wu Tian. This powerful attack caused a huge explosion, shaking the ground and making the air shake with power. Wu Tian, who had no time to prepare for the clash, was thrown back into the manor wall with tremendous force. Everyone around them froze in anticipation, and everyone held their breath, unable to believe what had happened. Wu Tian's men, with trembling voices and wide-eyed eyes, pronounced the Wu Tian clan head is dead. Ling Xiao turned around to Wu Tian's men with a stern expression and said, "What will they say?" Ling Xiao looked at them menacingly and said, "Decide to forfeit your martial arts or die." Wu Tian's warriors, startled by the sudden turn of events, threw their weapons to the ground and raised their hands, chorus saying, "We surrender." Ling Xiao laughed and said, "Well, get lost. In the meantime, they will go on a treasure hunt for the Wu family's treasure." After collecting all the valuables, they returned to the Yi family's estate, where there was an atmosphere of victory. At this time, Yi Xian was enjoying a relaxing bath in a secluded room of the manor. He reasoned that although the system allows one to quickly gain spiritual power to move from one world to another, but the transition of spiritual power into physical power still takes time. That was why Wu Tian's punch hit right on target despite his efforts to dodge. If his body had been nourished by spiritual strength for years, Wu Tian's attack would probably fail. At the moment, his main weakness was his physical strength. After thinking about his strength and abilities, Yi Xian decided that it was time to go to the 18 Lianyun Mountains and hunt 7th-rank monsters. Suddenly, the bathroom door abruptly opened, and Qing ran into the room with Yi Xian shouting, "What is she doing here? Don't you see? He's taking a bath." Yi Xian indignantly tried to cover his embarrassment. Qing snorted, crossed her arms over her chest, and said, "What does she have to be afraid of?" She said with a sneer. She teased him and said he told her he was an adult. So why is he washing himself with flower petals? Yi Xian blushed and said that it was none of her business. They needed to heal his internal wounds. Qing turned around and said he was so boring. She was trying so hard. Yi Xian wondered why she looked so upset. Qing impatiently asked Family Chun and Wu no longer existed. So when would he introduce her to the Cut Cloud sect? Her eyes burned with enthusiasm. "Wait a couple more days," Yi Xian said, trying to bring calm back into his voice. Qing, clearly annoyed, exclaimed, "Yes, how much longer do you have to wait? Do you have something else to do?" Yi Xian, confidently looking at Qing, continued, "Exactly. He is going to go to the Lianyun Mountains to hunt for rank 7 monsters." Qing surprisingly interjected again into the Lianyun Mountains. He had only recently returned. "Aha," Yi Xian confirmed, looking at Qing. "He needs time to cultivate." Qing flared up and said, "Cultivation this, cultivation that. He only knows how to cultivate. She spent so much time in Lianyang City, and he still hasn't taken her anywhere." "That's the way it is," he replied with a slight chuckle. "Don't go out tomorrow. The man your father sent will be in town." Qing, whose face flashed with anger, sharply and demandingly asked, "What did he say?" In the evening, Yi Xian and Qing rode their horses along the quiet paths away from the city. Qing, noticing the houses, stopped her horse. Yi Xian also slowed down his step, looking at her puzzled. "Let's stop for the night," Qing suggested, rubbing her eyes slightly tiredly. Ling Xiao looked at Qing puzzled and asked, "Listen, she was so actively rushing him to flee the city. Why is she calmed down now?" Qing, trying to explain her anxiety, said that she was in a hurry, for she was afraid that the people sent by her father had stopped near the Yi Manor. They were definitely safe now, so everything was fine. Besides, she's a lady. She shouldn't have to ride a horse all night, Qing said with slight irritation, raising her eyebrows and looking at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, raising his gaze to Qing, curiously asked why she is trying so hard to avoid meeting your father's men. Qing grinned and said that she wasn't going to tell him. He had told his father everything. Entering the building, Yi Xian said to the host with a confident tone, "Them 2 rooms upstairs." The host, with a good-natured smile, looked at them and replied well. The man drinking in this building looked up and stared at Ching with obvious interest. His lips stretched in a strange grin that combined mockery and something bad. The landlord, with a friendly voice, pointing to the stairs, said, "Please, this way, gentlemen." Ching, with enthusiasm, muttered to trust her. "Now, they will have a good meal." "Thank you, Miss Shui." Yi Xian started to speak, but when he noticed the group of people, he stopped. And looking closely, he determined their level. Level 7, he whispered to himself. "And the others are at the 5th level," Yi Xian continued, scrutinizing the group of people. "They don't seem to be from Lianyan City. Could it be the people sent by Uncle Shui?" He hesitated, clenching his fists tensely. Looking at Ching's calm face, he thought that he probably didn't, otherwise she wouldn't be so calm. After reaching the door, Yi Xian said that he thought he should go to bed early since they had to get up early. Ching walked into the room and, sticking out her tongue, mimicked his tone and said, "Okay." She slammed the door shut. Yi Xian went to his room and muttered to himself, "What a temper this girl has, of course." At night, when everyone was asleep, a strange man stood over Ching's door and began to listen. Ching, falling asleep in the star pose, slept peacefully, her breathing even and calm. The moonlight softly illuminated the room. The man stuck a knife in the lock and, after struggling for a few minutes, was able to get in. He walked over to the bed where Ching was sleeping peacefully and stopped, looking closely at her calm face. Ching, sensing danger, woke up abruptly and looked into the darkness and asked who was here. Without waiting for a reply, Ching abruptly turned around and launched her foot straight at the man, hoping to catch him off guard. But he stopped her attack with one finger and, with a smirk on his lips, said, "I see she's a capable girl." Ching, surprised at how easily the man stopped her attack, swiftly turned around and ran towards the door with a swift movement, shouting Yi Xian. But the man, quickly behind her, struck her on the neck, and she instantly lost consciousness, falling to the floor. The man wrapped a blanket around her and jumped off the window, landing on the ground without a sound. And moving quickly in the shadows, he headed for the place where the horses and 2 other men were waiting for him. Quickly they jumped on their horses and started on their way. Yi Xian, sitting on the rooftop and watching the departing figures, muttered to himself, just as he thought, he was here for a reason. Yi Xian didn't hesitate for a second and rushed to follow them, and noticed that this road led to Wanjingcheng. Yi Xian, quickening his step, pondered that even if these people were not sent by Uncle Shui, they definitely had something to do with him. Ching would be fine. She refused to both come back and explain to me what was going on. Yi Xian continued, shrugging his shoulders bewilderedly. Therefore, he would have to get answers out of these people. Yi Xian confidently decided, clenching his fists. Yi Xian, quickly looking around the surroundings, decided that he could intercept them if he went over the mountain. Yi Xian, without wasting any time, made a simple but effective trap by stretching a strong rope between 2 thick trees. The horses, crossing the place, suddenly became entangled in a rope strung between the trees, and with a muffled groan fell to the ground. But the man managed to jump off his horse in time, landing on the ground with ease. The man looked at his other companions, annoyed that they had fallen into this trap. Yi Xian, with a cold calmness in his eyes, asked who were they, and why did they kidnap his friend. "Head, this is the guy who was with her at the inn," one of the men replied, glancing anxiously at Yi Xian. The man, examining Yi Xian, said that it appeared that his gut had not deceived him. "He doesn't seem to be so simple." One of his companions became indignant and asked, "Not so simple? Is he joking? He's just starting to grow stubble. How can you be more like him?" The man said irritably, "Idiot, they had already gone 50 or 60 li from the inn. They were on horseback, but he overtook them and ambushed them." "Can you put 2 plus 2 together?" he asked. "What kind of guy is he?" "You know, never mind, though," the bandit leader replied with a slight chuckle. "You'd better stay out of it. They didn't fight him at the inn because they didn't want to get into trouble," he added. Yi Xian, with undisguised irritation, replied, "What nonsense. They didn't seem to want to answer his questions. Since that's the case, let's settle the matter by force, Yi Xian said confidently, already preparing to fight. Is he sick of living? The man asked in bewilderment, already preparing to attack him. The next moment, he swung his hand, and a stream of icy energy burst out from his fist. Yi Xian looked at the frozen hand and said, "The spreading ice fist is a 7th-level martial art." One of the men said, "Correctly, elements only come from martial artists of the 7th level or higher." "What, are you afraid?" "Of course you are. Then get the hell out of here. They won't chase him," he said irritably. Yi Xian, smiling with undisguised disdain, replied, "Just a 7th level. Easy." Yi Xian, smiling with undisguised disdain, replied that he could do the same. His voice was full of mockery, and his gaze showed that he was not impressed with his opponent's abilities at all. Yi Xian confidently said, "System, make a point exchange for the wind and cloud palm technique." The system announced that the wind and cloud palm technique has been purchased. 30 eater points have been spent. The girl with a smile said, "Come on, don't embarrass yourself. 7th level techniques are a rare thing. Most people are unable to comprehend them." The man said that a cursory glance was enough to realize that he was from that backwater Lianyan. Yi Xian, with concentration concentrating all his energy in his hand, said, "Well, you can test it on your own skin." All 3 bandits were shocked. Their eyes widened with surprise and fear when they saw such power in a young man they had thought weak and unthreatening. Yi Xian, concentrating his inner strength, directed the wind and cloud palm technique directly at his opponents. One of the men cried out, stunned by the unexpected attack. "Damn, this son of a bitch wasn't kidding." The head of the bandits concentrated his energy to create an ice sheet around his body. Their powers clashed like 2 elements. The ice power of the chief bandit, enveloping his body in a frosty glow, which tried to resist the swift gusts of Yi Xian's palm wind and cloud techniques. The chief bandit erected an ice wall, hoping to stop the onslaught, but Yi Xian's mighty wind technique crashed down on the barrier with incredible force. The wall began to crack with a loud crack. A moment later, the wall shattered, and the debris flew away. The rest of the bandits' partners, watching as the ice defense shattered, began to back away, gripped by fear. They shouted desperately, not hiding their panic, "Help me save you." The bandits who were trying to escape were suddenly swept up in a whirlwind and found themselves in the center of a fierce hurricane. The wind roared, lifting them into the air, and their screams dissolved into the deafening roar of the storm. When the storm finally subsided, the battered and exhausted bandits fell to the ground one by one. Their bodies were covered with abrasions and ice burns, their clothes torn, and their faces contorted with pain and fatigue. Yi Xian walked past the 2 defeated bandits without paying attention to them. One of them struggled to open his eye and asked, "Brother, is he gone?" The man angrily whispered, "Shut up. Pretend to be dead." The chief bandit, with difficulty raising his head full of anger and contempt, uttered that he had underestimated him. Grabbing his head, Yi Xian lifted him slightly. "Now answer me. Why did they catch Xin Xing?" he asked. His voice was cold and full of threat. The head of the bandits started to say that it was better to let them kill him. He wouldn't say a word, but Yi Xian didn't let him finish. Concentrating his energy, he used a technique and hit him in an instant, sending him into a state of semi-consciousness. Yi Xian, clenching his fists in irritation, muttered, "What a stubborn man." His patience was wearing thin. "I wonder if his 6s will be as intractable," he added, with a cold smile. Both bandits thought mammy. Yi Xian, walking over to the defeated bandits with a cold chuckle, asked, "Well, have you already thought of something to say to him?" "He will kill him," the bandit stammered, his voice trembling, and he barely held Yi Xian's gaze. Yi Xian, with a faint sneer in his voice, coldly asked, "What? Do you want him to kill him?" "It's not difficult for him." He raised his hand, in which a powerful energy began to concentrate. At this moment, the girl, burning with determination, rushed forward, covering the man with her body, and shouted loudly, "No." She said with a crying face that he stuttered. "Brother is a big man. He must have a good heart. Let him go," she said pitifully. Yi Xian didn't believe a word of it, and asked who she was trying to deceive. At the hotel, he was quite good with his tongue. She said it was true. It's just that he only stutters when he's really worried. Yixian already said that he should let her explain then. Standing up on the Kalini, she said that if he promised not to touch it, she would tell him everything. Yixian squinted his eyes, looking at the girl with slight bewilderment, and asked, "Are they together?" The girl blushed, embarrassed by the sudden question, and quietly replied, "Well, yes in general." Yixian abruptly interrupted her and said closer to the point. The girl sighed, embarrassment replaced by determination, and she began the story that it all started a month ago. They were sent by the head of Wanjing City. A month ago, his son accidentally stumbled upon Miss Shui and fell madly in love with her. The spoiled only son of the city had instantly went to her father and proposed the wedding. Lord Shui agreed, but a few days before the wedding ceremony, Miss Shui disappeared. The girl continued. Her voice became quieter, and she could hardly hide her excitement. And so, a couple of days ago, rumors reached them that the missing Miss Shui was hiding in the house of the Yi family from Lianyang City, and the city leader sent them to bring her back and hold a wedding. Yixian realized that this girl was a runaway bride. Now it was clear why she was reacting so strongly to the information that her father had sent people. Yixian cast a glance at the peacefully sleeping Qin, wrapped in a blanket and slumbering serenely despite all the commotion around. He gushed that she was still sleeping without back legs. How carefree she was. Yixian sternly asked, "What does the city leader's son look like? What kind of character does he have? And cultivation?" The girl said he's a total scumbag, lustful, no respect, and he treats people badly. The man took her by the shoulders and asked her what. What is she talking about? Zhang Xiang is a murderer. The girl lightly squirmed in his arms and cried out, "Hey, that hurts." "I apologize for the behavior," he muttered. Zhang Xiang is the son of the head of the city. Not only does he have a disgusting temper, he is also a bad man. All he does is eat, drink, and gamble. Also, he is unimaginably ugly. He is lustful and has 10 concubines. But in terms of cultivation, he's a natural genius. He is 22 years old and has reached the middle of the 7th level of martial arts. He was taken as a disciple in the Letian sect. Yixian, still not believing his ears, repeated, "To the Letian sect?" His voice sounded with a tinge of bewilderment. As they hugged each other, the girl said hopefully they had told him everything they knew. "Let go, please." Yixian smiled evilly and said, "Of course." His voice sounded with obvious sarcasm, which made the two bandits immediately rejoice, believing that he was willing to let them go. "Only we have to kill someone first," Yixian said, his voice becoming cold and resolute. Qin slept, but started to wake up, muttering how noisy it was. There were joyful voices all around her that easily broke through her sleep. Xian is a man of fair fortune and indescribable nobility. Qin opened her eyes and asked in surprise, "Was this her bedroom?" She looked around the room, trying to realize what had happened. Qin tried to get out of bed, trying to remember the recent events. The last thing she remembered was that she was at the inn. So why had she ended up here? She tried to gather her thoughts and figure out exactly how she had been transferred to this room. Qin, listening to the sounds from the street, heard a conversation. "Yi's such a funny guy." Opening the window, Qin saw Yixian and his father peacefully discussing something at the table. She muttered to herself, to Yixian. She quickly rushed to the backyard, anger overwhelming her. Qin thought, "This guy." Lord Shui asked with joy in his eyes, wondering, "And what does he plan to do next?" "Well," Yixian started, but at this moment, Qin burst into the courtyard, loudly exclaiming, "Yixian!" Yixian, smiling gently and turning toward her, said, "Qin." She woke up. But suddenly, he noticed a foot flying at him. Qin cast a furious glance at him and shouted, "Bastard, he betrayed her." "Honey, actually, Yixian saved her," Lord Shui worriedly said, intervening in the growing conflict between Qin and Yixian. Qin was surprised, not believing her ears. He had saved her from the people hired by the city's ruler. If it wasn't for him, there would definitely be trouble, Lord Shui explained, trying to dispel her doubts. And she can't run away anymore. Qing snorted disdainfully and said that he was the one forcing her to marry this scoundrel. Her voice trembled with rage, and a fire lit up in her eyes. Yi Xian, moving aside with irritation, asked, "Can you please remove your foot?" He just let him not think something wrong. The blushing Qing mumbled, clearly embarrassed by this situation. She took her foot away from Yi Xian's face. "And when did he force her?" Lord Shui asked, with a slight smile, though there was a flicker of bewilderment in his eyes. When the Zhang family proposed the wedding, he asked her opinion, and she agreed. After that, he accepted the wedding gift from them. Qing brushed it off and said that she was too busy having a picnic, so she didn't really listen to what he was saying. Yi Xian, looking at Qing's undisguised irritation, thought she at least sometimes think what she is doing. Qing, with undisguised anger, declared that she didn't care. She wasn't going to marry him. If that's what he wants, then let him marry him himself. Lord Shui, turning to Yi Xian with embarrassment, said that he seemed to have spoiled his beloved Qing too much. "Nephew Yi, doesn't he find this amusing?" In response, Yi Xian laughed awkwardly. Lord Shui said with a slight smile that she could breathe easy. He had already ordered the wedding gift back. Qing looked at him incredulously, not immediately believing what she heard. Qing looked at him incredulously, not immediately believing what she heard. Why is he so cooperative? "Hey, who is there in her father's skin? Come out," she shouted. At that moment, a servant burst into the room. "Sir, trouble," he said, panting. The ruler of the city and his son had attacked them. But the servant had no time to speak before a powerful blow threw him aside, and he crashed against the wall. All three of them instantly tensed up, ready for the upcoming fight. Their eyes lit up with the fire of battle. The city's ruler and his son entered the manor and looked around at everyone present with a smug grin. The ruler's son looked at Lord Shui boldly and asked if he was the one who broke their engagement. Yi Xian, looking at the newcomers with obvious disdain, thought, "Are these two really father and son?" Looking at the man, he noted that the ruler of Wanjing City looked very good. "But let's not talk about his son," he thought with undisguised distaste, wrinkling his nose involuntarily. "Maybe it's not his son at all," Yi Xian suggested, raising one eyebrow and chuckling to himself. "Mr. Zhang, don't they think that doing such a thing in the Shui family's manor is a bit excessive?" Lord Shui asked, looking coldly at the Wenjing City ruler and his son who had escaped into the room. The ruler's son replied with an undisguised threat in his voice that the Zhang family owned all of Wanjing. Not only could they kill his henchmen, they would raze this place to the ground, and he would do nothing to them. Wenjing, casting a sizzling glance at Lord Shui, grudgingly asked the ruler, was this his idea? Wenjing patted his son on the head and snorted and went on to say that his son can't stand people who don't trust him. And when he is angry, he is not his boss. Yi Xian intervened and said that the most important thing in marriage is love and mutual desire. Since Qing doesn't want to marry him, why should they both suffer, he asked. The son of the ruler of the city shouted that he now understood why she broke off the engagement. It was because of him. His voice shook with rage. The son of the city's ruler, with furious rage in his eyes, rushed to attack, shouting out "Look Qing" as he would tear his beloved apart. "Wait!" exclaimed Lord Shui, but no one listened to him. Qing shouted for Yi Xian to be careful. Her voice was full of panic. The ruler's son was already ready to strike, but Yi Xian instantly disappeared as if he had vanished into thin air. Suddenly he appeared behind his opponent, his movements quick and confident. He attacked with his bare hands. The blow resounded with deafening force, throwing the air back. However, Wenjing, reacting in time, deftly caught his son in flight and gently placed him on the ground. At this time, Wenjing's entire body was enveloped in cold blue energy. An aura of rage pierced the air. With fury in his eyes, he looked at Yi Xian, shouting, "How dare he hit his son?" His voice cracked with anger. "He will pay for it with his life," Wenjing growled, his voice cold and full of death threat. Yi Xian, feeling the powerful Wenjing energy encompassing the space around them, thought, "What a strong aura!" Yi Xian quickly assessed the situation. He knew that he couldn't match Wen Jing's strength yet. He thought to himself, what should he do? Suddenly, Wen Jing sensed something strange in the air and instantly turned around and sharply asked, "Who is here?" A man came out in front of the manor entrance and said that the Shui family served Lian City. The man took a step forward and his gaze darkened. There was an icy note in his voice as he said that he would strongly advise them to back off, for they had already attracted his attention. Wen Jing chuckled coldly, looking at the man in front of him appraisingly. "A rank 9 martial arts master," he said, bowing his head slightly. The Shui family had a few aces up their sleeve. The head of the Shui family looked at Wen Jing. A warning flashed in his eyes, but his voice was as steady as ice. He said with a smile that Mr. Zhang was joking so much that he had no choice. They looked at each other, and a barely restrained anger flashed in their gazes. Wen Jing's gaze was sharp, while the eyes of the head of the Shui family were darker, full of unkind fire. The tension between them was growing. Wen Jing, holding back his fury, said with cold certainty, "If you want to break the engagement, fine. But in that case, they will return the wedding gift tenfold." Head Xian struggled to keep his composure. He said with an icy grin, 10 times the amount? That will be 500 million silver. This kind of greed is not good for people. He coldly said 5. The Shui family only agrees to reimburse 5 times the amount. If they, Mr. Zhang, are not satisfied with this, then they will only have to fight, he added, looking at him defiantly. Yi Xian, with a dissatisfied expression on his face, muttered that he was still so young. If he knew how much weddings cost, he would have asked for more. Wen Jing, not missing the chance to turn the conversation in his favor, said with cold determination to be given 5 times the amount of the wedding gift and add another 5 kilometers of land to it. Wen Jing thought to himself, one cannot relax with this old man. One must bargain to the end. The ruler's son, interrupting the silence, uttered with confidence and anger that he, too, would have another condition. Pointing his finger at Xian, he challengingly threw out that he wanted to fight him. His voice was full of determination, his eyes glittering with aggression. Head Shui started to protest, but Yi Xian interrupted him, preventing him from continuing. "Good. He just wanted to teach him good manners," he said with a mocking smile, a clear sneer in his voice. The ruler's son, already flaming with rage and threat, said that he thought that he, the handsome one, would have no guts. But it was better. He would beat him to death. Yi Xian asked disdainfully, will he beat him? He's already in his 20s, and he's only rank 7. He is no different from a backwater dog. He'd better stop wasting energy. The ruler's son said that he was screwed. At this moment, flames engulfed his body, and crackling energy rang out in the air. Using his technique, he began to swiftly attack. Yi Xian easily dodged the attacking flames. His movements were precise. He then used the swift step technique and instantly disappeared from sight. A second later, Yi Xian was behind the ruler's son, deftly grabbing his hand. "This attack again," he said with a sneer. "Looks like he didn't have enough to do that time." Suddenly, the ruler's son used a sneaky trick and pulled out a blade from behind his back, and his eyes shone with rage. "Deception," Yi Xian exclaimed, his voice full of surprise and bewilderment. He quickly realized that the opposite party had used a cunning distraction to trap him in a trap. Her eyes widened with shock and indignation when she saw the ruler's son using trickery and exclaimed, "What a mean thing to do." He had a hidden sword. Head Shui shouted, "Nephew, be careful." Yi Xian used the swift step technique again, and in the blink of an eye, he vanished in a thin air like a ghost. His movements were so fast that even the air around him vibrated with his energy. The opponent who had been seized by the attack didn't even notice his disappearance. In the next moment, Yi Xian materialized behind him. His movements were as silent and fast as a lightning strike. The opponent was greatly surprised when he suddenly felt a cold steel grip on his arm. Yi Xian abruptly wrapped his opponent's arm behind his back, squeezing it in an iron vice within human strength. He then quickly stepped on his opponent's head, pinning him to the ground. Yi Xian wrenched his opponent's arm with savage force. The bones cracked under Yi Xian's inhuman strength, and he cried out in excruciating pain. His face twisted in pain and his eyes filled with tears. Everyone present was shocked. Their eyes widened with surprise and horror. They could not believe what they had just seen. Wenjing was furious. A cold blue energy enveloped his body, and his eyes lit up with anger. He released all of his energy. So cruel at a young age. He roared, his voice cracking with anger. Wenjing rushed to attack. His movements were swift. His voice was soaked with hatred as he said that it would be better to keep him away from martial arts forever. His hands were shrouded in blue energy. Zhang reacted quickly and rushed forward, his movements lightning fast and smooth. He headed towards Wenjing, ready to protect Yi Xian. Wenjing's punch was powerful, but Zhang met his attack with relentless force. Their fists made contact with a rumble that made the ground shake. The air vibrated from the collision of the two powerful energies. Zhang, looking anxiously at Wenjing, said that wounds are inevitable during battle. Thinks it would be better for him to go right now to find a doctor for his son. It would affect his martial arts. Wenjing, holding back his anger, said angrily, "Boy, say your name." His voice was as cold and hard as ice. An unquenchable rage burned in his eyes. "Yi Xian from a Yi family, Lianyun City," Yi Xian replied with pride. His voice was calm, but there was self-confidence and unwavering determination in it. He was not afraid of Wenjing's anger. Qingqing, shocked at what she heard, asked, "Are you going to take revenge?" Saying at once, he was not just Yi Xian from Lianyun City, but also a disciple of the head of the Split Cloud sect. Her voice trembled with anxiety and excitement. Yi Xian, hearing Qingqing's words, thought, "Hey, don't make things worse." He understood that she wanted to warn Wenjing about his strength, but he was afraid that it would only make things worse. Wenjing, with a threat in his voice, muttered, "It seems that the Shuef family had decided to climb a tall tree." He, already on his way out and carrying his wounded son in his arms, exclaimed that he had better pray that his luck would stay with him. There was a threat and a warning in his voice. Zhang mumbled to the disciple of the discerned obelisk sect head while thinking. He furrowed his brow, trying to recall the rumors he had heard earlier, and asked, "Isn't that Guan Yuan?" Or was his memory starting to fail him? Qingqing, realizing that her words might have embarrassed Zhang, awkwardly said that she had completely forgotten that Uncle Lien was one of the instructors of the Split Cloud sect, so he would not be fooled. The head of the Shuef family lightly bowed and said, "Thank you for your help, Lien." His voice was full of gratitude, and he looked at him with respect. Zhang, not expecting this, with a slight smile on his lips, said no thanks. With a slight huff, the head of the Shuef family added that this time they had clashed directly with the Zhang family. "This will definitely affect our Chamber of Commerce in the future." Zhang tried to calm him down and said that there was no need to worry. Her daughter had said that this guy was a disciple of the head of the Dissected Cloud sect. If the Zhang family believed it, they wouldn't hurt them. Qingqing grudgingly exclaimed that she had said the first thing that came to her mind. Zhang, after a bit of thought, suggested that then they needed to put that lie into practice. Yi Xian looked at him curiously and asked what he was proposing for them to do then. Zhang said that the sect leader travels, so it's impossible to become his disciple. But the castle takes disciples if he thinks they are talented. If he joins the sect and you show your best, he will take you on as a disciple. Yi Xian grinned and replied with confidence that it was nothing complicated. He is neatly going to pay a visit there. The head of the Shuef family smiled and enthusiastically said, "Fine, then count on him. He will order the servants to prepare the table. Such a thing needs to be communicated," he suggested. Already in the evening, in a cozy room, over a cup of tea, the head of the Shuef family and Yi Xian were having a peaceful conversation. Yi Xian looked at his uncle and asked curiously, "To what do I owe this late visit?" The head of the Shuef family replied, "Yi Xian, he and his father are very close, so let us be clear." Pouring himself some tea, Yi Xian thought that, of course, they were close. He had once saved his life. The head of the Shuef family, with a slight smile on his face, leaned on the table and asked what he thought of her favorite daughter, Qingqing. Yi Xian replied that she was a very nice girl and sweet, a little willful, but sincere. These words sounded sincere. although he noted that her fickleness was sometimes worrisome. The head of the Shui family said with a smile, "Fine, then marry her." From this statement, Yi Xian couldn't help but spit the tea out of his mouth, staring at his uncle in surprise. "Uncle, you can't do that," Yi Xian exclaimed, still confused by the unexpected suggestion. "She is like a sister to me. I don't see her as a wife." The head of the Shui family sighed with a slight annoyance, said that he had decided to get rid of his inadequately rich uncle. His voice sounded upset and a bit resentful. "All right, if you don't want to force it," the head of the Shui family said, shaking his head slightly. But this time he not only saved Qingqing, but also helped the Shui family a lot. He is the one who simply can't forget. The head of the Shui family, with a stern voice, ordered the servants to carry. His intonation left no room for doubt. Everyone knew that they should immediately carry out his order. Yi Xian's eyes lit up when a whole bunch of valuable items were brought into the room. He watched with curiosity and admiration as the servants carefully placed the luxurious gifts in front of him. It takes a lot of resources to cultivate martial arts. He hopes that he will accept his little gift, said the head of the Shui family with a warm smile, pointing at the shiny objects. Yi Xian opened one of the boxes with curiosity, and upon seeing it, he exclaimed, "What are these black spiritual mushrooms?" Bloody spiritual mushrooms that had turned black? His eyes widened in surprise. "Uncle, it's too expensive," he muttered, still not believing he had received such a valuable gift. Head Shui waved it off and said with a smile, "Yeah, it's no big deal," as, in his opinion, this is the very thing. Yi Xian was annoyed to think the market price of black spirit mushrooms was at least 50 million, and he was talking about them as if they were worthless. Damn rich people. The head of the Shui family said with a smile, Yi Chong had indeed raised a worthy son. Unlike him, her Qingqing was not so lucky. Yi Xian, showing genuine interest, asked Uncle, "How much does he know about his father?" The head of the Shui family replied that, in fact, not very much. His father was never known for being particularly talkative. He faltered briefly and continued that he was always smiling around him. He smilingly began to reminisce and began to tell me that if he hadn't helped him back then, he would have been nothing but bones. It was 4 years ago when he first came to Wanjing. His caravan was surrounded by bandits as they passed through the Lianyun Mountains. He continued proudly that at the very last moment he had appeared, a mysterious and incredibly strong man with a child in one hand and a sword in the other. None of those bandits could compete with him. That man was his father, and the child was him. He remembers the moment he went into battle to save him. His bravery impressed him. That's why when he passed through Lianyun, he would bring them gifts. He noticed with pride and a smile that their families were growing closer and closer together as time went on. The head of the Shui family looked at Yi Xian with interest and remarked, Yi Zhong probably knows even more about his father than anyone else. Why doesn't he approach him with questions? Yi Xian frowned slightly and replied that unfortunately, he doesn't like to talk about his father. Moreover, Yi Zhong thinks that he is dead. The head of the Shui family was shocked by this news and exclaimed that this couldn't be. This is simply impossible. Yi Chong's cultivation is too great for him to die so easily. Yi Xian looked at his uncle curiously and asked Anna how big is his cultivation. Scratching his chin, the head of the Shui family hesitated, trying to gather his thoughts, and said, "But the bandits who attacked his caravan back then were rebels from the Xinyan Empire. It was said that their leader was a general whose cultivation reached the middle of the true profound world." A couple more hours passed, and Yi Xian headed to his room. The head of the Shui family accompanied him to the door and said, okay with a smile, "Rest, he will not be disturbed." Yi Xian replied, "Take care of yourself, uncle." As he closed the door, Yi Xian reflected that the 10 ranks of martial arts come first, followed by the true spirit stage. Then comes the true profound stage. And a person who had passed the true profound stage couldn't do anything to his father. He involuntarily smiled as he realized the immense strength and skill his father possessed. Lianyun was still a backwater, but a nugget like his father had appeared there. His family should really be proud of him. But Yi Zhong doesn't want to talk about him. Turning around, Xian noticed all the valuable items provided for him by the Shui family. As he approached the pile of treasures, he touched them and said devour. At the same instant, a wave of energy ran through the air. At that moment, he felt his body fill with life force. Yi Xian looked at the treasures and thought that his father had left him as a child. It was definitely not for nothing. Maybe it was because of his mother. A thought flashed through his mind. Yi Xian felt a powerful energy fill his body. He had obtained 160 eater points. 7th level martial arts obtained. This information vividly surfaced in his mind. Yi Xian, scattering the boxes in rage, exclaimed, "Dumb system." It was a bottomless pit. Resources worth 200 million were only enough for the 7th level. His voice was filled with anger. The next day, Xian was about to return home after a long journey. As he waved goodbye, Head Shui wished him a good journey, nephew. To not waste any time, he used the shadow step technique. His new skill not only gave him lightning-fast speed, but also looked extremely impressive. Using the shadow step technique, Xian moved at such an incredible speed that even people passing by didn't notice his presence. Xian moved swiftly across the terrain, sensing and could not hold back a joyful exclamation. The shadow step was stronger than the swift step. He didn't expect anything less from an 8th level martial art. This technique not only provided incredible speed, but also looked much more spectacular. As he thought about it, he began to ponder the fact that he needed to catch and devour a rank 7 beast to activate the blood of 100 beasts. He knew that such creatures dwelled in the mountains, starting from the 10th rank. There would be a mountain just on his way, and it turned out to be an amazing coincidence he could pass through the 10th mountain on his way to the dissecting cloud sect. Xian immediately set about executing his plan, going on a hunt throughout the forest. He moved quickly and stealthily, and his movements were precise. The devouring animals system kept informing him that he had defeated the flaming tiger and marked the Blood 100 Beast activation 5 out of 100%. After chopping the turtle, he heard the system telling him again that he had defeated the stone turtle, activating the blood of 100 beasts 27 out of 100%. Xian easily defeated the bloodthirsty vine, and the system once again reported that he had defeated the bloodthirsty vine. 100 beast blood activation 69 out of 100%. He continued to destroy more and more monsters until he reached his goal. After chopping the eagle, the system said that he had defeated the purple eagle. Activating the blood of 100 beasts is 99 out of 100. Walking a little further, he encountered a huge monkey, which he effortlessly chopped into pieces. The monkey, feeling intense pain, screamed, shrillingly breaking the silence of the forest, and soon died. After such an intense time of hunting, Xian was very tired, his body was disheveled and scarred, and he fell to the ground with relief, saying that he was finally done. Yi Xian, surprised, said that he couldn't believe that it took him a whole week to do this. Opening the system, he saw the message activation of 100 beast blood 99 out of 100. Walking over and touching the recently killed monkey, he uttered the command devour. The system immediately confirmed it. 100 beast blood activation 100 out of 100%. At this instant, Xian felt a powerful wave of energy fill him. His eyes glittered with a golden color, and his entire body was covered in a golden glow, as if he had become a living embodiment of strength and power. He felt the power overflow his every muscle, filling him with an energy he hadn't even dreamed of before. Every part of his body received strength, making him stronger with every passing second. Xian felt his muscles becoming supple and powerful. Xian crouched next to the stone while clenching his fist. Suddenly, he struck the stone with a strong blow. The stone instantly shattered into small pieces under his powerful blow, leaving a deep dent. Looking at his hand, he said it wasn't bad. The effort had paid off in full. He was several times stronger, faster, and tougher than he had been before. During his time hunting, he has reached the pinnacle of the 7th level of martial arts, honing his skills in battles with dangerous beasts and enemies. Now, even people at the mid-8th level of martial arts wouldn't be able to withstand even 10 of his strikes, if he didn't use martial arts. However, over the past week, Xian had realized that his fighting and recovery skills left much to be desired, and this needed to be urgently corrected. He hesitated and turned to the system with a command to open the low-level blood list. A huge list of many powerful bloodlines opened up on the screen. Xian thoughtfully said, "Blood of 100 colors, the only suitable low-level blood." He selected the option to purchase blood of 100 colors. The system confirmed and said the exchange was successful. 360 points expended. It's a shame, but he'll earn more, he thought, glancing frustrated at the insufficient number of points. A circle began to form around him, concentrating the power he had absorbed. In the next second, all the wounds from the hunt instantly healed without leaving a trace. All the small wounds had already healed, leaving no trace. He'd expected nothing less for the price, he said, examining himself with satisfaction. Okay, he's been here for too long already. It's about time he got to the Split Cloud sect. After a long journey, Xian reached the highest mountain, which was rumored to be the entrance to the sect. He assumed that it was probably here, one of the two largest sects in the Nanling region. Xian arrived at the gates of the Split Cloud sect and was spotted and stopped by a guard. The guard looked at Xian suspiciously and asked, "Brother, why did he come here?" Wanting to report back, Xian replied, slightly embarrassed by his shabby appearance. "It's been 2 months since the recruitment, and he's only coming in now? Does he have any papers with him?" The guard, noticing Xian's tattered clothes, said that it looked like he had been robbed on the road. "Yeah, something happened," Xian admitted, scratching the back of his head awkwardly and averting his gaze. He thought that he would have to hide his spare clothes in the devouring space. He handed the guard a token with a golden emblem, confirming his status as a disciple of the sect. "Here," he said, hoping it would convince the guard. The guard carefully examined the token and nodded, saying that it was indeed a disciple token. At this moment, as if materializing out of thin air, a person teleported out of the sect gate, emitting a powerful aura. "Senior Brother Ning," the guard greeted him, bowing his head slightly in respect. Ning, casting a disdainful glance at Xian and examining him, thought that he was a beggarly ragamuffin. Pointing at Xian with a contemptuous gesture, he exclaimed, "What are you doing? Some beggar wanders under their gate, and he's chatting with him?" Ning's voice was ringing with indignation. Brother Ning came to them as an apprentice. "He has a token," the guard tried to explain, looking at Ning hopefully. Ning, hitting the guard on the head, said with a cold chuckle, "What do you think he would believe that?" Ning, not wanting to hear any explanation, said to look at him. "He's in rags, like a beggar. Get him out quickly," he said in a cold voice. The guard asked Brother Ning to calm down. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a girl appeared, and she said in a firm voice, glaring at Nina, telling him not to bully the students. Ning said Sister Guan. She had misunderstood everything. He was just teaching an inept outer disciple how to do his job. Next to the girl was a man who asked Brother Ning. He had already come down from the mountains, right? Xian, watching what was happening, thought that this girl was at the peak of the 7th level of martial arts. The guy beside her, on the other hand, was only at the middle of this level. His stance and breathing gave Xian away that he had not yet reached the limit of his ability. Considering Ning, it turned out that he had met 3 people with level 7 in such a short period of time. He didn't expect anything less from the Dissected Cloud sect. Good, it's even more interesting. The girl looked at Xian and felt a tremendous power surrounding him. He has such a strong aura, she thought. Ning, already irritated, asked Nu, "Why is that beggar still here?" His voice sounded hoarse and threatening, with a clear intolerance in it. Losing patience, Xian asked, "Is he even deaf?" He had said what he came for. His voice became sharper, and he could feel the tension building up in it. Ning shifted and walked towards Xian, asking how dare he talk to him like that? "Are you tired of living?" Xian, having easily dodged Ning's punch, instantly assessed the situation. His movements were smooth and precise. Guan, watching what was happening, thought that one should not judge a book by its cover. He was at the peak of the 7th level of martial arts. Xian, gathering all his strength, powerfully struck Ning, his fist like lightning, crushing his opponent. The punch was precise and powerful. The impact threw Ning back with such force that he broke the railing and found himself on the edge of a huge chasm. Everyone anxiously looked at Ning and were shocked by what had happened. His state of balancing on the edge of the abyss caused them fear and anxiety. Yi Xian, dangling above the abyss and holding Ning by his cloak, said, "You should be more careful, brother. They are at the top of the 10,000 phantoms. If you fall, you won't be able to count your bones," he said sarcastically. Ning shouted, "Get him back up." Yi Xian, pretending not to understand, asked, "What are you saying? The wind is strong. I can't hear anything." Ning's heart beat faster as he realized how close he was to falling. He admitted he was wrong. "I was wrong. Only God forbid pull." Yi Xian, fulfilling the request, pulled Ning back and threw him to the ground. A moment later, Ning was safe. The man standing next to Guan angrily said, "And his guts are not thin since he dared to bully his man." He looked at Yi Xian suspiciously and added that something told him that he was an enemy sent to their sect. The guard interjected and said, "Brother Liu, there has been a misunderstanding." The guard handed the man a badge and said that he had come to their cult. There's even confirmation. The man took the token, looked at it with contempt, and without hesitation, shattered it into pieces that scattered on the ground like small shards. The girl was surprised. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw the man crumble the token. Yi Xian was angry. He didn't expect such bold behavior from a stranger. The man slammed his fist into the guard's face and said with rage in his voice, "Is he even blind?" This was definitely a spy sent by their enemies. He almost killed Ning as well. "Ning, we'll deal with him alone," the man said, and a powerful aura of energy flashed across their bodies. Sparks sparked around them, and the air was filled with tension. Guan, with anxiety in her voice, turned to her companions and said, "Guys, wait. All the tokens are issued by Elder Gong. Let's just ask him." The man, along with Ning, attacked Xian, angrily stating that they would do just that, beat him up and take him to the Elder. Their intentions were clear, and they clenched their fists, preparing to attack. Ning, using his most powerful technique combined with the strength of a man, shouted, "Accept your fate." Their auras flashed brightly, filling the air with tension and ominous energy. In the next second, Xian disappeared, and Ning and the man were in complete shock. They didn't have time to realize what had happened, but Xian was already behind them, quickly grabbing their heads and slamming them against each other with force. Shock and confusion instantly enveloped them. Guan, watching what was happening, involuntarily thought that they wouldn't even be able to handle it together. Xian lifted the man by his collar and coldly said, "You bastard, he broke the token. Does he even realize the mistake he made?" His voice sounded threatening and his eyes glittered with rage. A stern voice behind them said, "Stop. What's going on here?" Xian looked at the elder who appeared and replied, "Elder, he came to the sect, and these guys decided to test the strength of his cultivation. So they decided to compete." Guan disdainfully thought that he was a liar. The elder, after thinking about it, said that he was the same Yi Xian from Lianyan City, right? Xian confirmed and said that it was like that. He is exactly the one. His voice sounded confident and proud. The man, pointing judgmentally at Xian, exclaimed that his greed was driving him crazy. He wanted to become stronger so badly that he resorted to elixirs. He's already at the peak of the 7th level of martial arts. He realizes that things aren't going well for the Yi family right now, but that's no reason to sacrifice his great future, is it? The elder, pointing his finger at Xian, coldly said for him to go to the outer sect, training until he got rid of his surface strength. The guard took Xian by the throat and cheerfully said, "Let's go, brother." Xian felt the guard's arm around his neck and was surprised at first, but then caught a note of friendliness in his voice. Xian, infuriated by these words, a thought flashed through his mind. Right? Who was it that he superficially called? Wait. His anger flared up like fire, and he couldn't contain his rage. The elder, looking at him in his wake, hummed and stated that he felt sorry for the little boy. and the two of them, couldn't defeat a man with superficial strength. This month, both of them get a failing grade, the elder said. The two disciples began to cry and beg for forgiveness. "Shut up, you'd better cultivate," the elder exclaimed across the mountain, interrupting the young men's complaints. His stern gaze made them freeze. Xian and the guard were walking along a path surrounded by dense trees. The guard, pointing in the distance, said, "Brother Yi, from here, the straight line is where we reached." Xian held out the potion to him and apologetically said that he had gotten hurt because of him. "Here, drink this, it will definitely help." The guard, embarrassed, awkwardly said that this potion was too valuable. It was nothing serious, but he'd be back on his feet in a couple of days.